session offers interpretation into English, French, Spanish, and other languages assisted by AI. So you can access the interpretation by clicking the link that is being shared in the chat and selecting your preferred language. You can also listen to the interpretation using the speaker button. And please, if you're going to speak, indicate the language you will be speaking in beforehand. Estimados y estimadas colegas, es un placer estar con ustedes hoy y ver a tanta gente conectada. Bienvenidos y bienvenidas a esta cuarta edición de los días VLR-VSR, organizados por CGLU, ONU Habitat y UNDESA en el marco del Foro Político de Alto Nivel de Desarrollo Sostenible 2025. Antes de continuar brevemente, esta sesión ofrece interpretación en inglés, francés, español y otros idiomas a través de inteligencia artificial. Pueden acceder a la interpretación haciendo clic en el enlace que se está compartiendo en el chat y seleccionar su idioma preferido. También pueden escuchar la interpretación usando el botón del altavoz. Si van a intervenir, por favor, indiquen previamente el idioma en el que intervendrán. Chers collègues, c'est un plaisir d'être ici avec vous aujourd'hui et de voir autant de personnes connectées. Bienvenue à tous et à toutes à la 4e édition des journées VLR-VSR, organisées par CGLU, ONU Habitat et UNDESA dans le cadre du Forum politique de haut niveau 2025. Avant d'aller plus loin, un service d'interprétation est disponible en anglais, français, espagnol et plusieurs autres langues, assisté par l'intelligence artificielle. Vous pouvez accéder à l'interprétation en cliquant sur le lien qui est partagé dans le chat et en sélectionnant vos langues préférées. Vous pouvez également écouter l'interprétation en utilisant le bouton haut-parleur. Et si vous souhaitez intervenir, veuillez indiquer d'avance la langue dans laquelle vous vous exprimerez, s'il vous plaît. Having this said, it is an honor to give the floor to the high-level representatives of the 3 institutions co-organizing the VLR-VSR Days, UCLG, UN Habitat, and UNDESA, for this official opening. Let's start with the words of UCLG Secretary General Emilia Saiz. Emilia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Anna, and the teams of all the organizing institutions that are behind these voluntary local reviews days, voluntary subnational reviews. As we all know, we are in a very special moment of our common agenda and of our joint objectives in humanity. We gave ourselves a very ambitious agenda in 2015, the 2030 agenda. And we have a few years left now to actually fulfill the objectives that we set together. There are many ways of looking at the way that we are doing. You can say we are not doing enough to achieve this, progress is not sufficient, but you can also say we have demonstrated that change is possible. That is the path that the United Nations Secretary General chose to take in his report on progress on the 2030 agenda. And from the perspective of our organized constituency of local and regional governments around the world, that is also the path that we are choosing to take. To realize that change is possible, that we might not be where we want to be, but that there is transformational action that we can all undertake, that the big challenges that seem impossible to be solved by one single actor, a sphere of government, or by one country alone, can be taken step by step by communities, by public policies, and truly make a difference. And the voluntary local reviews and the voluntary subnational reviews are the embodiment of this conviction. They are wonderful tools to show not only the importance of localization of the objectives, but also to demonstrate connections between different objectives. They have proven to be a very critical tool for policy transformation, not only for policy monitoring. And we are very proud to say that the movement around the localization of the Sustainable Development Goals is growing. and that we have impressive numbers of voluntary subnational reviews that are being developed and voluntary local reviews. I am sure my colleagues of UN Habitat are going to go more in detail about this, and that the colleagues of UNDESA will be able to show us the connections with the voluntary national reviews. What we know for sure is that transformation is happening, and that we have now tools that enable us to track that type of transformation. And that for our constituency is extremely important. We also want to ensure that we don't go back on some of the achievements that we have made, that we don't go back on around rights, and that we don't forget that some of the common objectives that we set ourselves in 2015 are still worth working towards. And so as a united movement of local and regional governments, we want to encourage our membership to engage in the exercise in order to improve their policies. And we will be hearing today and throughout the next 2 days of many different types of examples. On the other hand, we also want to convey to the national governments that there needs to be different investment in local capacities, in local action to actually enable the type of transformation that we need. As we come out of a very interesting Finance for Development conference in Seville, we are calling for greater multi-level governance commitment, increased financing and access to financing for local and regional governments, but also a commitment from our membership to empower inclusive and participatory decision-making with communities. The tandem of communities and the sphere of government that is closer to them is critical. We want to ensure that as a group, as an alliance with UNDESA, with UN Habitat, with organized local and regional governments, we encourage the next step, going from policy to actual impact, being able to monitor that impact, and to give good argument, good example, and evidence of the type of investment, capacities, and competencies that local and regional governments need to have. Not as an issue of power, but as an issue of improving the lives of citizens everywhere, leaving no one and no place behind. So Anna, I will stop here. It is a privilege for us as United Cities and local governments, but also on behalf of the Global Task Force of Local and Regional Governments that is going to be gathering in New York at the High Level Political Forum next week to kick off these wonderful voluntary local and subnational review days. My hope is that one day, 1 year, the whole High Level Political Forum will be about these examples, and who knows, dreams might come true. Thank you very much, Anna. Back to you.
Thank you, Emilia, and thanks for bringing the outcomes of the Financing for Development conference to this session. Very timely, because the first session that we will start in a second, it precisely focuses on multi-level governance, decentralization, and local finance and financing the SDGs. I'll move on now to Mr. Raf Toots. He's the director of the Global Solutions Division at UN Habitat. Mr. Toots, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Anna, for inviting us to open this session. We're very happy to be here. Welcome to this start of the VLR-VSR Days. Particularly, I would like to welcome and to appreciate the collaboration with UCLG, with DESA, and with the regional commissions for their very specific and valuable contributions. We are partners in this. This is the 4th edition, and we are really proud to be able to continue doing this as we are developing more impact. And it's the dedication of these organizations, I believe, that has helped to keep the spirit of boosting VLRs, VSRs, and SDG localization to reach the level where it has reached right now. I'll just build on some of the things that Emilia was just saying. We're going step by step in this process. And when we are meeting now, we have moved a lot from 4 years ago when we counted just 110 VLRs and 15 VSRs. And now we have reached more than 370 VLRs and 45 VSRs worldwide. So it's at least a tripling of the numbers in these 4 years, which is quite an impressive acceleration of the cities and countries that are working on this in a dedicated manner. It has moved from an innovative practice to something that has become almost a mainstream and a global movement. And there are solutions to be found in these VLRs and VSRs, and they demonstrate indeed that action at the local level is a prerequisite for achieving the SDGs. A few examples. We know that currently the majority of the adaptation and mitigation actions that are necessary to tackle climate change are or will be implemented at the subnational level. We are estimating between 50 and 80% of those actions are needed at the local level. We have seen that last year, in terms of disaster risk reduction governance, the 110 countries reported local disaster risk reduction strategies, and 73% of local governments have such strategies in place. We have seen that 70% of global emissions are generated by cities, and the need of finance for climate action is about 4.3 trillion annually. So cities play an enormous role in the addressing this urgently. And finally, in terms of housing, which is of course very close to our mandate, we see that cities specifically need to build 96,000 units of homes, affordable homes every day until 2030 to keep up with demand. So these are numbers that show the enormous responsibility of cities and subnationals in making the SDG dream a reality. So what we're going to do in the coming days is try to assure that this movement is truly a paradigm shift, as Emilia was also hinting at. How can we expand our reach to further include even more cities and regions? How can we support local administrations that are still facing serious capacity constraints? And how do we ensure that in these processes, no communities are left behind? So we are hoping that these days are helping to set the scene and the perspective from moving from reports to processes that drive action, deliver results, and strengthen communities. So in the coming days, we're going to hear on different thematics and different perspectives. I'm just going to give a few examples of what is going to be discussed. One is going to be the need for multi-level governance and adequate decentralized financing. And you will hear from the city of Tbilisi in Georgia, where the VLR was very closely connected to the national VNR, reinforcing alignment between different levels of government. We're also going to hear from Surigao in the Philippines related to inclusive and participatory approaches, where stakeholder forums guided the VLR process, actively consulting indigenous groups and informal settlements in these VLRs. And also we're going to hear from cities like Niš in Serbia, where SDG monitoring unit has been established as a way to transform policy and carry forward the VLR legacy and institutionalize it. So we're going to hear from these cases and many more cases to show where we have reached and the level of sophistication in these processes. Let me conclude by just saying one thing about what Habitat specifically is going also to bring to the table in this, and what we are offered through the SDG Cities Global Initiative. We are offering and reaching out to leverage VLRs as a starting point for action through data, planning, and investment capacity strengthening. And we are offering to help to anchor these VLR process in adequate investment opportunities to advance inclusive prosperity, protect the environment, and drive long-term change. So I invite everyone also to connect with our team who are connected here during these days to reach out and connect with SDG Cities Initiative. So this is a call to action indeed. It's a call to elevate local leadership, to invite investing in subnational capacities, and to forge alliances to live up to the promise of the SDGs. Thank you so much, and wishing you a very productive and inspiring discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Toots. It is indeed strong collaborations like the long-standing one between UCLG, Habitat, and UNDESA, and the projects you mentioned as well, right, which will foster this paradigm shift that you were mentioning. Last but not least, Mr. Navid Hanif, Assistant Secretary General for Economic Development at the United Nations Development Department, of Economic and Social Affairs. Mr. Hanif, over to you.
Thank you, Anna. It's an honor to follow Emilia and Mr. Tutt's illuminating remarks, and especially Emilia's dreams. Thank you, Emilia, for sharing these inspiring dreams. And I like to believe those will come true one day. So, honorable mayors, governors, ladies and gentlemen, greetings from New York. I am delighted to join the opening of the 4th edition. This is the 4th year of the days focused on voluntary local reviews and voluntary subnational reviews. On behalf of the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs, I want to convey sincere appreciation to United Cities and local governments, Emilia, and UN Habitat, Mr. Tuts. Thank you for the long-standing partnership. Emilia and Mr. Tuts mentioned, unfortunately, the Sustainable Development Goals remain off track, with only 20% of the SDG targets on course to be achieved by 2030 deadline. It is indeed sobering news. Progress has been uneven and limited on several goals. But positive progress across regions and countries demonstrate that change is possible. So there are some silver linings to these clouds. Certainly, the growing efforts of local and regional governments to implement the SDGs, often in partnership with their national governments, is both inspiring and impactful. So DESA is encouraged by the commitment, ambition, and innovative approaches of local governments to achieve the SDGs. Over the next 2 days, as mentioned by the previous speakers, we are looking forward to hearing more from those participating in the VLR and VSR. The voluntary local and subnational reviews, I believe, is one of the most dynamic phenomenon in the SDG landscape. In just few years, local governments from around the world have embraced local reporting as a critical tool to localize the SDGs. In short, bring the SDGs to local and community level to advance their implementation. And if I recall correctly, 65% of the targets will be implemented at the local level. Ladies and gentlemen, the VLR and VSR practices have brought many benefits in terms of stakeholder engagement, increasing multi-level governance for sustainable development, and advances in all dimensions of SDG localization, which are from data innovation to planning and policy coherence, project development, and financing. For the past few years, UNDESA has been actively supporting local and regional governments to develop their VLRs and make sure the linkages to voluntary national reviews. Because as custodians of SDGs, DESA needs to ensure coherence across all levels of implementation. Given the high level of interest demonstrated by national and local governments alike in the VLR and VSR processes, going forward, we must consider how the international community and national governments can scale up support for these processes and for the important work and transitions that should come once the voluntary reports have been prepared. Now let me come to this year's edition of the days. I want to highlight three key dimensions to advance SDG implementation. First and foremost, equipping local governments with the necessary skills and resources to advance the SDGs at local level. Amelia mentioned, Mr. Tuts also acknowledged, the fourth conference on financing for development has provided pathways to secure financing for local governments to implement the SDGs. Second, inclusive governance that involves all stakeholders. Third, integrated planning of follow-up actions that are aligned with national and global SDG frameworks. Ladies and gentlemen, the challenges we face are global, but the solutions often begin at the local level. As the UN Secretary General Guterres said, cities are where the climate battle will largely be won or lost. I truly believe that collaboration and knowledge sharing among cities are vital. Forums like this provide an invaluable platform for exchanging innovative ideas and successful strategies for how local and regional governments can advance the SDGs through whole of society approaches. Your insights will be important not only to this year's high-level political forum, but they can also serve to inform the preparations for the upcoming World Summit for Social Development that will be held in early November in Doha. Let me assure you that UNDESA remains your partner with unwavering commitment to advance localization of the SDGs, to ensure accelerated implementation. As Amelia mentioned, we have less than 5 years left, so we really need to scale up and speed up. Let me end by a quote from Mayor of Barcelona, Ada Colau. Local authorities have the unique ability to innovate and implement sustainable solutions that can inspire the rest of the world. End of quote. And I believe mayors, governors, local city authorities, you are the beacon of hope for implementing the SDGs. I wish you very productive deliberations during these focus days and looking forward to your engagement in the high-level political forum. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your wise and encouraging words, Mr. Hanif, Mr. Toots, Ms. Saith. I am positive that the reflections of these VLR-VSR days today and tomorrow will permeate not only the HLPF starting next week, but also other global fora that are equally critical. So let's move on now, and let me give you a warm welcome to the first of the 3 sessions of this edition of the VLR-VSR Days. My name is Ana Calvete Moreno, and I am the head of research at UCLG. I'm honored to serve as the master of ceremonies for this first discussion, which will focus on multi-level governance, decentralization, data, finance, which are a topic that goes straight to the heart of SDG localization. As we enter the final 5 years of the of implementation of the 2030 agenda, the importance of multi-level governance cannot be overstated, as we have already heard. We know that local and regional governments, who manage nearly 40% of global public investment, they are not only service providers, but also political actors, innovators, and community anchors. They translate global ambitions into real outcomes in people's daily lives through public services like housing, water, care systems, education, public transport. However, their full potential is often undermined by fragmented governance systems, by limited fiscal autonomy, and by insufficient inclusion in national SDG coordination mechanisms. Unfortunately, the data that we have today confirms this challenge. In our SDG localization report, which we will launch at the HLPF next Tuesday, we show that only 37% of the countries who are presenting a voluntary national review this year, only 37% engage local governments as active partners in the national SDG implementation strategies, up from an average of 30% since 2016. By this, we mean like including them in national SDG coordination mechanisms and implementation strategies. We mean formal inclusion in coordination bodies, or at least regular consultation. And just 46% of these countries have involved local governments in a meaningful way in the VNR production process. This represents a slight improvement over the long-term average of 41%, but it is a decline from 2024. Another point, nearly in 1/3 of the countries reporting to the 2025 HLPF, there is little to no engagement from local governments at all. Even when local realities are mentioned in voluntary national reviews, the absence of these institutionalized mechanisms often leaves local governments sidelined from actual and real decision making. But let's mention also the positive side of it. Some regions, such as Africa, have shown encouraging progress this year. And there are inspiring examples where local governments, very often through VLRs and VSRs, have catalyzed stronger dialogue and collaboration, data systems, and even shifts in decentralization frameworks. We also want to commend those national governments and UN agencies that are promoting these innovative approaches to VNRs and to national coordination. But also, as has been said before, localizing financing and strengthening monitoring systems is not a technical option, it's a political imperative to guarantee rights, ensure sustainability, and strengthen local democracy. The VLRs and VSRs that we'll hear about today, and the insights shared by our speakers, they're not just reporting exercises. And I think this is clear amongst us, right? That they are powerful instruments for political engagement and systemic change. These contributions, we know they are vital for advancing the global conversation on multi-level governance, and they offer also concrete examples of how local knowledge, innovation, and leadership can reshape national and international policy. So this session, let's take this session as an opportunity to build on these bright spots and to understand how VLRs and VSRs are helping reframe multi-level governance, challenge top-down schemes, and unlock local capacities for transformation. We will have dialogues between different partners. We can count on local governments, local government associations, national governments, international organizations, and research institutions. So through these dialogues, we can explore how to turn VLRs and VSRs into critical tools that help institutionalize genuine multi-level coordination, and one that is lasting, grounded in mutual trust, shared mandates, and equitable financing. So without further ado, I'd like to invite our first speaker today, Ms. Maria Eugenia Gai, who is the 6th Vice President and Deputy of International Relations and the 2030 Agenda of the Barcelona Provincial Council. The Barcelona Provincial Council has been at the forefront of SDG localization since the adoption of the agenda, and has used this commitment in their actions to support the municipalities of the province, the communities, and peers also from around the world through decentralized cooperation. They have now published their first VLR and a monitoring tool that I think we will explore together. So, and Mrs. Guy's presentation will set the scene for the dialogues that will follow. So, Ms. Guy, without further ado, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anna. Well, dear friends, dear authorities, it's a pleasure to be here with you, sharing our experience. I think it would be really productive. Since approval of the 2030 agenda, the Barcelona Provincial Council immediately assumed the commitment to integrate this agenda as a strategic framework for local public action, with the conviction that local governments have an essential role to play in its application and success. So this session, I think it would be really very successful for all of us to share these experiences and to be able to build new horizons. The Barcelona Provincial Council is a local government institution that supports the 311 municipalities of the province of Barcelona, a territory that represents 5.7 million inhabitants. And this territorial dimension gives us a significant responsibility. We should act as the backbone of the territory, making it easier for city councils, large and small, to deploy effective and inclusive public policies aligned with the SDGs. This task is at the heart of our institutional mission, and it should be our commitment. It's important to say that after almost 10 years of intensive work of all the teams, the Provincial Council has believed that it was time to evaluate our work. And for this reason, we have prepared the first local voluntary report, and that we will present it in New York also. And this report is a concrete and transparent example of how we are deploying the SDGs, both within the institution itself and in cooperation with the 311 municipalities that make up our territory. The report adopts a whole of government approach and analyzes how the institutional structure and policies of the Provincial Council as a whole contribute from their specify to the achievement of the SDGs during the period 2020-2024. The report was based on a rigorous and transversal diagnosis prepared with the participation of all the areas of services of the Provincial Council. The work carried out has also made it possible to have a battery of action and territorial indicators with quality data to measure compliance with the commitment to the 2030 agenda. With this report, we not only want to be accountable, but also to share learnings, challenges, and advances, and to strengthen our commitment to open, collaborative, and data-driven governance. The Barcelona Provincial Council has promoted multiple actions and projects aimed at achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Some actions and milestones achieved that are included in the local voluntary report. For example, we will express and we will share our commitment in each one of the SDGs. With SDG 1 and poverty, we have invested 26 millions of euros transferred to municipal basic social services. With SDG 2, Zero Hunger, we have spent more than 5,500 wallet cards for families' access to fresh food and basic products. For example, in SDG 3, Health and Well-being, 95% of the municipalities in the province have support for the promotion of sports activities. Imagine it's almost all the municipalities have this support. With the SDG 4, quality education, more than 17 million visitors and 7% coverage of the populations of the library network. In the SDG 5, do you listen me?
Yes, we can hear you correctly.
Okay, sorry, because I have seen that my image is not moving, so I thought that okay, that everything is working. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the image is frozen, but
with
we
the
can hear you
SDG
well.
5, with gender equality. Okay, thank you. SDG 5, with gender equality, 99% of municipalities with support from the provincial council to promote programs to prevent gender violence. With SDG 6, clean water and sanitation, we have spent 100 million euros for their sectorial program for the improvement of water supply networks. SDG 7, clean and affordable energy, we spent 47 millions of euros from the 2030 ecological transition program to support local climate investments. SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, 100% territorial coverage of the employment offices, and also with a specific service aimed at people diagnosed with a mental health disorder. With SDG 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructures, we have supported 156 local projects with the Next Generation funds. With SDG 10, reduction of inequalities, more companionship, autonomy, and security at home. We have supported them with more than 1,000 people with active local telecare service. And if you see yes, with the SDG 11, sustainable cities and communities, we have spent 16 millions of euros to strengthen public facilities and urban spaces to improve the quality of life by 2024. With SDG 12, responsible consumption and production, 91 municipal markets as part of the campaign to promote sustainable trade and responsible consumptions. SDG 13, climate action, we have helped 82,000 people participating in the fire prevention and land management training programs. We have worked also in underwater life, with life and land, with good governance and strong institutions that represent 14, 15, and 16 SDGs. With the SDG 17, partnership for the goals, it's important that I will now mention that we have created a new platform of local indicators of the SDGs open sources, the 2030 viewer, with information on the economic, social, and environmental reality of the province of Barcelona. From an international perspective, it should be noted that the Barcelona Provincial Council has reached the commitment to allocate 0.7% of its budget to development cooperation in the third countries. And I think it's a very important issue. But this report also takes a critical and honest view. We recognize that there are still areas in which progress needs to be made, ensuring planning that is more aligned with the SDGs at the municipal level, improving the quality and availability of local data, or incorporating the voice of citizens and local stakeholders more clearly. Precisely for this reason, this voluntary report becomes a tool for continuous improvement, which should allow us to evaluate, rethink, and reorient public policies from a transformative perspective. So this is our vision of our annual report.
Thank you, Maria Eugenia, for your presentation, and I think it's been very clear the importance of designing and implementing sound projects that are also accompanied by sufficient financing, and also for showing how the Barcelona Provincial Council fosters positive multi-level governance when working with your municipalities. So thank you very much for the presentation, for being with us today. The Barcelona Provincial Council has also shared a couple of questions. Thank you. Hoping these questions will spark the debate in today's discussion, I will go briefly through them. So First point, the 2030 Agenda has promoted the formation of multi-actor and multi-level alliances in the definition of public policies, as we saw. However, in their case, the relationship with the national government does not seem to have changed much over the years, and there are still no real spaces for dialogue among equals. And so they ask, does this also happen in your countries? Have the 2030 Agenda or the SDGs improved multi-level governance in your territories, and how, if so? Second point, there is a deficiency of local indicators. I think this rings a bell to many of us here today. So state or regional statistical institutes might not always facilitate or invest in building indicators at the local level. So this makes it very difficult, they say, to analyze the impact of their own policies on the territory, diagnose the situation, or make territorial comparisons. And local governments, they very often don't have the capacity to assume this. And here's where the Barcelona Provincial Council decided to create this BISO 2030 to provide indicators to its municipalities. So the question, how is this problem addressed in your territories or cities? What measures have you taken? And are national governments contributing to facilitating local indicators? So these are the questions that they launched, and we hope you can start reflecting on them and picking them, particularly speakers, but also in the question and answers, this is an open question. You can share your thoughts as well. We will move on with the first of the two dialogues we have today. Dialogue 1 focuses on building from the ground up as a way to rethink multi-level governance, decentralization, and data systems through VLRs and VSRs. So I'll now invite Fernando Ortiz Moya from the Japanese Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, or IGES. IGES produces a very valuable report every year where they analyze the latest VLRs through different approaches. And so they have a very hands-on understanding of the potentialities of these processes. So Fernando, please go ahead.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending where you are. It is a real pleasure and honor to be here today and to be moderating today's first dialogue on building from the ground up, rethinking multi-level governance, decentralization, and data systems through VLRs and VSRs. So I think that even though we are saying that the 2030 agenda is falling behind and it's not being achieved at the speed that we were expecting it to happen, the examples like we just heard from the Barcelona Provincial Council shows us how there is all these qualitative improvements that are really shifting how we understand development and how society is understanding sustainable development. So to discuss the two questions that has been posed by our previous speaker, as well as other questions that we are going to be exploring, we have a panel with three distinguished speakers. First, Mr. Oliver Peters from the from the German Institute of Urban Affairs. Then Dr. Andy Harum, Mayor of Samarinda. And finally, Mrs. Maracosu from the Ministry of Environment and Energy Security on the Italian government. So I think this section is called a dialogue, so I hope that we can address the question that has been posed by the Barcelona Provincial Council, by Maria Eugenia, as well as to other questions, such as, for example, how have VLRs and VSRs influenced or triggered changes in multi-level governments, frameworks in your country or region, what concrete steps are being taken or should be taken to institutionalize the role of local and regional governments in SDG coordination mechanisms, as well as coordinating with your VNRs. And finally, what examples are you in your country or in your experience demonstrate how VLRs or VSRs have empowered territories to assert political agency or demand greater decentralization? So I would like to open the floor to our speakers. Maybe we can go by order, or if you want to speak, you can also raise your hand. But let's hopefully have an interactive discussion and let's all of us discuss these important topics together. So please, if someone wants to go ahead. If not, maybe Oliver, maybe you can go ahead and speak first.
Yes, thank you very much, Fernando, and thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'd like to give you a short perspective from the German perspective. So, in general, I think multi-level governance and the involvement of local authorities requires constant sensitization and awareness raising of stakeholders, and we are still a long way from where we actually want to be in Germany, to be fair. But however, with already 18 VLRs raised from Germany and status reports such as the Voluntary Local Government Review, which is the VSR from Germany this year, we have seen substantial progress towards the integrated governance in different areas. For example, Germany will publish or has already published its voluntary national review and will be presenting it at this year's HLPF. And this is the first time that the VNR from Germany, for example, will include or dedicate the several pages of the subnational level incorporating the voluntary local government review as stakeholder contribution. This may not seem much, but if we compare it with the situation 4 years ago when Germany was publishing this last VNR, the local contribution actually was only part of the appendix. So in this case, we are seeing that this awareness raising and this constant sensitization actually works. And this is not only working in terms of reporting, as I said, such as the VLGR, which was an initiative from the ground up, a bottom-up initiative initiated by 4 cities, Stuttgart, Hamburg, Mannheim, and Bonn. We can also see that those initiatives and also the awareness raising is incorporated, for example, in the German sustainability strategy and its update from 2025, which was updated this year. Also, the municipal level, the local level was appearing much more than in the last version. And this German Sustainable Development Strategy now states that municipal sustainability management instruments should be strengthened at municipal level. And we can see that not only on the national level, we can see that also on the federal level, which is very important in Germany. So the so-called Länder, the 16 states, almost every of those states has already published and encompasses its own sustainability strategy. And there we can see also the support of municipal and local efforts and ambitions in terms of, for example, land consumption, affordable housing, and urban production. And what I want also to highlight is that, which is a very good thing, which we can see, is that conflicts, so goal conflicts and also synergies were directly addressed on the local level where they appear. This awareness raising also on the national side actually is something which we can see here. In general, this is what I wanted to conclude for the first question, is that we definitely wanted to see more of it, and we definitely wanted to have a more stringent strategy also in terms of the post-2030 agenda. So an involvement and inclusion of municipalities and cities, regions all over the world would be very beneficial for all of us.
Thank you very much, Oliver. Indeed, I think that this engagement, this multi-level coordination is a work in progress. There's been already good examples and experiments, and we are learning by doing how to keep moving forward. And hopefully, once we start with the post-2030 agenda and we move forward, this aspect will be strengthened, and we will probably hear more from cities and leave local and regional governments a bigger space into these global discussions. So hopefully we can have more time to have further discussion. But now I would like to let Dr. Andy Haroon, who is the mayor of Samarinda, to express his opinions or engage with any of these questions. So please, sir, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon to Anna. Good afternoon, all distinguished participants, and warm greetings from Indonesia. I am Andy Haroon, Mayor of Samarinda City. It's an honor to join this forum and share how Samarinda, a city in East Kalimantan, Indonesian country, and one of the main supporting cities of future national capital, Nusantara, has localized the SDGs into tangible, measurable action that directly impact the lives of our residents. Our commitment to the SDGs is deeply embedded in our local planning instruments, especially the medium-term regional development plan, which is aligned with the 2030 agenda. In our first VLR, we focus on 5 priority SDGs. First, 1 SDG, no poverty, realized through Pro Bebaya. This about program in Samarinda City I call Pro Bebaya, a flagship program of neighborhood-based development financing that empowers communities from the bottom up. Residents are engaged through planning, implementation, monitoring, and maintenance. This bottom-up, participatory, and data-driven initiative bridges local planning with real community needs. Second, 3 SDG, good health and well-being, strengthened through improved primary health service and direct intervention at the neighborhood level. Mobile doctor program for vulnerable groups. 3, 11 SDG, sustainable city and communities through inclusive and resilient city planning, including our 100-0-100 program. It means 100% access to proper sanitation, 0% slum areas, and 100% access to safe drinking water. 4, 13 SDG, climate action. By adopting a local climate action plan, controlling vehicle emissions, developing climate resilience in public space, and creating green space and fly grounds in every sub-district. 5, 17 SDG, partnerships for the goals. Through active collaboration with UCLG, SPAC, academic institution, civil society, and international partners. Yet we are mindful of the challenges we face: financial constraints, capacity gaps, rapid urbanization, and environmental degradation. To address this, we rely on 4 strategic pillars, among others: partnership, participation, innovation, and strong local governments. We also promote multi-stakeholder collaboration through the Pentalix models, enhance local data systems with support from our statistic agency and universities, and access climate financing such as the Adaptation Fund for Public Resilience Infrastructure. Through the VLR process, we reform that cities like Samarinda hold political will, local innovation, and global partnership to realize the 2030 agenda. We believe that decentralized governance, supported by data, equitably financed, and inclusively coordinated, is essential to sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Andy. It was a pleasure to hear from you and to see how Samarinda is actually implementing the SDGs. And I also enjoy that you mentioned the stakeholder engagement, which is a critical component to actually bring sustainable development and the SDGs to the ground and to advance them. So thank you very much. And now, without further ado, and last but not least, let me give the floor to Mrs. Mara Cosu from the Ministry of Environment and Energy Security from the Italian government. So please, Mrs. Mara, if you can talk about how the government of Italy is supporting multi-level governance and how you're supporting the development of SDG and implementation. It will be a pleasure. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Fernando, and thank you, colleagues, for having organized this important discussion. I will try to react to some of the issues raised by the colleagues from Barcelona, starting from the fact that by law, Italy has to deliver a national strategy for sustainable development since 2010. So the first one has been approved late on 2017, but we have a working flow going in the right direction among commerce, which has embodied 2030 agenda ongoing. But I would like to start from Maria Eugenia's words when she called for a very specific topic, which is we have to transform our working models, which means that what we are trying to do in Italy, the way we are interpreting this need in Italy at least, is trying to really work about the background, but a common language and a common vision to share, which is, again, the 2030 agenda interpreted by the National Strategy for Sustainable Development, but most of all by continuously working on some in multi-level mechanisms among equals, as Anna was saying before, saying that and meaning that we have bilateral agreements as a national government with each of the regional and the two autonomous provinces and metropolitan cities governments to deliver their own agendas for sustainable development and mostly to participate to working tables with all the other local entities working on the same shared problems. We are dealing with data, monitoring issues, and particularly working on, as a whole, policy coherence for sustainable development, which is the pilot upon which Italy has chosen to develop and implement 2030 agenda at institutional level. This means also, following PCSD approach, that we are very much working on multi-actor engagement, which means third sector, NGOs, enterprises, and universities. And we are pushing regions and territories to do the same. And it also involves another level of problem and issue that has to be faced, and we are facing it in a way, we are trying to manage at least, which is the multi-level engagement of actors. Because much of those actors, many of them, are also multi-level on their own way. So it is quite another element to be put in through the discussion and the reasoning, because it's quite crucial to understand how we can, at least in Italy, how we can stimulate a multi-level engagement of actors across sustainable development policies. And in these issues and these challenges, VNRs and VLRs are quite crucial in order to achieve political engagement and political advocacy. So Italy has presented its first multi-level VNR in 2022. We had some integrated VLRs into the national report, and this was quite a relevant initiative to us because we learned a lot, and we learned also what were the main items we had to share with the territories. So we learned how to deal with that, and we are going to present a candidature for the next year HLPF, and we are trying to organize another multi-level process for VNRs and VLRs. And VLRs, when integrated to the national level, are also much more useful for internal use of each of the local administrations, because they have a really powerful push towards a very much a very increasing engagement at the political level. In this way, Italy is also supporting and funding the partnership platform on localizing the SDGs, which is trying to bring at the global level and to support partners and countries to adopt the same perspective and to use the policy coherence for sustainable development as a key for looking into and to supporting the development of VNRs, VLRs, and engaging in the full implementation of 2030 agenda at different levels. Just a few words about the second main point raised about data. I completely agree about the fact that we have a very strong need in terms of data availability at local level. We are very much equipped at national, maybe at regional, but we are falling down when we go to the local. What we are trying to do within our national table, with the statistical system and the other ministries, is trying to define a shared monitoring framework with a selected number of indicators, trying to get to the coverage at the local level for all of them, or at least a part of them, in order to secure just a core set of information that the local levels can bring into the exercise, and we can have common measures to have common assessment of the process, so that we can compare and we can also collaborate in delivering common measures. What is still lacking, and what we are trying to do on our side, is how do we monitor and assess the process itself? As somebody before me told, we have very much empowered and increased our capacity in going through the process needed for implementing 2030 agenda, apart from the achievement of each of the SDGs. And how do we measure that? And we're trying to go through a monitoring framework for assessing policy coherence for sustainable development per se, which means trying to qualify the processes enact at different levels in order to properly monitor, assess, develop integrated policies, and engage different kind of actors in the process. So this is what we are basically trying to do. Remember that we are, as I heard this morning in the National Statistical System presentation of the National Report on the SDGs, they hugely told about the need not only to have data, but to increase the capacity to deliver and continuing deliver complex measures for complex processes and dealing with the increasing complexity we are facing. So this is the hope, and I really hope that the next VNR and VLRs can engage in that and giving their contribution. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mara. It was a pleasure. And indeed, I would like to also the remarkable example of the multi-level VNR, VLR that Italy produced a few years ago, which to my knowledge, it's one of the probably the only example of such an integration and at very different levels. I remember there was VLRs done by different regions together, VLRs done together between a metropolitan city and the regional government, the national level. So it was a very integrated but and complex, but very well realized process. So I would like to really congratulate the government of Italy for that, and looking forward to next year. I hope you can keep building on this. So there is a lot of high expectations from you, but thank you so much for your remarks. And I think we are already falling short of time, so we might need to stop our first dialogue here. I think it's been a real pleasure to hear from all our guests today. See how VLRs and VLRs are actually shaping policy and are helping to advance sustainable development in Germany, Indonesia, as well as in Italy, and hope that this give all of you food for thought and inspire you to keep taking action. And I'm sure that all the speakers will welcome questions later on via the chat or email, and me as well. So thank you very much, everybody, and also thank you so much for the organizers for the organizers and again for letting me join today. Over to you, Ana.
Thank you. Thanks, Fernando. And thanks to the three speakers for their wonderful presentations. I think like very important points have been raised, like policy coherence, also thinking of multi-level governance together with multi-stakeholder approaches. I think that's really valuable. So congratulations on all of you. And thanks, Fernando, for the facilitation. I'll now hand over to my colleague at the research department at UCLG, Mateo Fabris, who will guide us briefly through the Padlet tool. Mateo?
Thank you, Anna. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you to all the speakers that contributed so far and the ones that will come. So in the short break in between the very interesting first panel and the second, and these very, very interesting and engaging discussions, I would like to introduce to you collaborative platforms that you see on the screen. It's a Padlet that we created together with UNDESA and UN Habitat to make this edition of the VLR and VSR days more interactive for you. So what will you find in it? If you click the link that you will find in the chat, you can enter this platform and you will find already, for instance, in yellow, some questions in blue and in purple. And in yellow, there is a post to which you can comment by clicking the little comment button on the bottom right to pose your questions to the speaker. And perhaps now in this session, but also in the sessions organized by DESA later today and by UN Habitat tomorrow, you will have the chance to hear these questions answered by the moderators or by the speakers. In addition to this, you can find learning materials on how to use VLRs, how to produce VLRs, insights on how VSRs were used in the past, but also you can post your own initiatives. As you see, Equini posted, for instance, a video on their mural process on a mural on SDGs and the 2030 agenda. But if you did a VLR yourself, you can post it and share it with the participant in the VLR and VSR days. So what we envision for this platform is, of course, for it to be open in these 2 days of the VLR and VSR days, but also beyond. So really a collaborative platforms where all of you can get to know new initiatives and initiatives of your peers or national governments or international organizations. You can share learning material. You can share your reports. So in going towards the second discussion, please feel free to click the link in the chat and explore the platform, the Padlet platform, but also share your questions, share your thoughts, and add your initiatives to this interactive platform. Thank you very much, and Anna, back to you.
Thanks, Mateo. Thank you very much for presenting the tool. And me, myself, I can also encourage you to use this tool, because if we're here is to find different ways, right, to share knowledge and learn from each other. So do share your tools and insights as well. So we turn now to dialogue 2, which will focus on one of the most critical enablers of SDG localization, which is subnational finance. Emilia was mentioning at the beginning, UCLG Secretary General, we're coming out of this 4th International Conference on Financing for Development, where despite the important discussions, local governments have finally not been acknowledged with the centrality that their role deserves. So let's dive in this important topic and the role of voluntary local and subnational reviews in this process. And let's do it with moderator Diana Lopez, advisor on cities and local governments at UNDP. Unfortunately, one of the 2 speakers has not been able to join. So I think it's going to be a comfortable conversation between Diana and Mrs. Lafitte from OECD. Diana, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Anna. So allow me to start with a bit of a reflection of what happened in Sevilla last week. It looks like already a long time ago. I didn't have the opportunity to be in Sevilla, but I participated in the preparation processes And I also was in Addis Ababa 10 years ago. That when you read decade, you feel very old because 10 years is a decade. And of course, Addis Ababa happened before the SDGs. So I wanted to do a short reflection about these 10 years and what happened since Addis and what has happened in Sevilla. So when I saw the Sevilla Compromise, that is, of course, the agreement of member states, of central governments regarding where financing for development is going to go, normally the first thing when I open a declaration of the UN, which is UN agreed language, so it has taken a long time for these countries to come together and agree on a language, especially in the particular moment that the UN is living through conflicts, ongoing wars, and bipolarization, I would say, mostly than polarization. So I always look for the word local in a declaration. And in this case, the word local appears in the Sevilla Compromise 28 times, which you could say is a lot, is a little. The question is that most of the reference go to local banks and local currencies, but most importantly, there are references to local challenges and local development, which is not the case in the previous declarations. Of course, regarding local governments, which is what we are talking about here today, there is only 2 paragraphs that consider local governments. Paragraph 27, that includes in general means of implementation, and there is a reference to transparency, a reference to fiscal systems and sustainable development, which is also very important to be there. The reference of capacity support, and immediately there is when we find the paragraph on subnational finance is there. So there is a reference to the importance of subnational finance. Of course, is not what we wanted to be, but I think still in this particular situation is not about paragraph 27, because it speaks, of course, of enhancing capacities. It says where appropriate. This is a way of governments telling you, we are not interfering in how central governments operate with local governments, but still we are thinking that subnational finance is important, and it's important to give capacities. Then we ask about a diversification of revenue, which is also very important. There is a mention of municipal bonds that was not in Addis Ababa. And then, of course, there is the reference to transparent intergovernmental transfers, which is at the end of the day where most of the local governments get their funds, which is the central government. And there is also a reference to infrastructure asset management, thanks to the very hard work of the colleagues at UNDESA. And then finally, the paragraph 40 makes also a reference to the integrated national financing frameworks, which is a bit like the SDG, the way of including local governments. And there is a specific reference on the local governments when the countries are thinking about how to do integrated financing networks. Is it a good result? I've been doing a little bit of research, and you see the Addis Declaration that happened in 2015, where when I was working in UN Habitat together with DESA, together with UNCDF and with the Global Task Force, of course, we brought the mayors for the first time to one of these conferences about financing development. The word local is mentioned in Addis Ababa 16 times, but it's also a document of 68 pages, because you have to, of course, compare the number of pages. The Sevilla Compromise is 38 pages, and we have 28 reference to local. But the paragraph 34, of course, maybe is longer, is a more ambitious paragraph, but we have to remember that this is a process where the member states are also considering local governments in these global agendas. So I think we are in the good way, especially if we go back to the Monterrey commitment that was in 2002, where local is only mentioned 3 times in a document of 25 pages. So I think that the most important from Sevilla Declaration is that there is mention to local development, there is a mention to local governments as a constituency, and there is also a mention to sustainable development and the local application of all this. So I think that this is thanks to the work that we have been doing on SDGs. I think the Agenda 2030 has opened the floor for all UN conference to talk about the local dimension of development, and the world is changing, and maybe this is an opportunity as well for us to see how the financing system can serve the needs of local governments who are serving the needs of their citizens. So this is a bit my take on the Sevilla commitment. But of course, I have with me here Charlotte Lafitte, who is the director of the World Observatory of Subnational Government at the OECD, the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. Charlotte, I think that you have the best acronym in the whole system, which is WOFI. This is a system developed by UCLG and the OECD. And my question to you is, do you agree with my vision on the Sevilla commitment? What is your view about where the world is going in terms of subnational finance, in terms of financing the needs of local government? Your last report was 2002. I don't know if you have plans for a new report. If you could tell us, that would be very interesting. But also, what is your vision about what has changed in the last 3 years since the last WOFI report? And how do you see the situation in terms of globally how the finance of local government needs is going? Over to you.
Sorry, colleagues, just one small interruption to say that Mr. Abu Mahama is here and he will be able to represent the mayor of Secondita Coradi in this dialogue too as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So I won't take too much time. But so thank you, Diana, and thank you for these encouraging words about Sevilla. I will come back to this. So yeah, at the OECD, so I do not represent a subnational or a national government in a position to produce VLRs, but yeah, we work on the same topic. We produce data indicators to support decision makers. And I agree with what you said, Diana. So we know that subnational governments have been here for a long time, not always, and their role in SDG implementation is well acknowledged today. Yet their financial capacity and their degree of fiscal power, of autonomy, has remained largely unknown, misunderstood. It was largely absent from the Addis Ababa Declaration. As the representatives from the Barcelona Provincial Council and from the Italian government have pointed out, the challenges and the necessity to invest in building local indicators are even more truer regarding financial and fiscal data, which are off topic now. And so there was and there has been for a long time this dead-end cycle, a lack of data, which reflected a lack of knowledge about local government financing, and fiscal decentralization has then been often overlooked in development and in decentralization processes. And in return, this prevented regions and cities from functioning effectively alongside central governments to reach the objectives. Just to further illustrate this point, there was a survey conducted by the OECD, the SDSN Commission, and the European Committee of Regions in 2023, which showed that the lack of financial resources was cited as the first challenge to reach the SDGs by the majority of subnational governments. So that's why we launched this initiative of the WOFI together with UCLG back in 2015. So actually it was also in Addis, so 10 years ago as well. And so at the time, the objective, and it's the same objective today, was really to collect, to standardize, and to publish data and indicators on subnational finance and multi-level governance at a global level. So we believe this has improved, and we hope this has contributed to some of the transformative changes that we see today, both at the global level, but also national and regional. So this WOFI is a challenging exercise. So as you say, the last edition was published in 2022. It's a bit like producing mini VSR, mini VLR for today, a sample of 135 countries worldwide. But thanks to the support of many partners, experts, collaborative governments, it's still running today. And so indeed, last week, it was actually recognized in Sevilla as one of the tools for monitoring the follow-up of the Financing for Development Conference as part of the Sevilla Platform for Action. So this is a great recognition. So this is just one step, of course. And what is left now is to keep working and publish next edition. So you were asking about that. So the next edition is planned for next year, 2026. It will be the fourth one. We hope it will keep contributing to the discussion, to the debate. Regarding the topic of the debate today, we think it's particularly interesting regarding voluntary local reviews and voluntary subnational reviews, because the observatory provides a public database which can enable subnational governments to benchmark their financial capacity, their spending priorities against those of other countries. But the observatory also provides country profiles, which give more contextual information. And this combination of the two can really help local, regional governments to identify obstacles to mobilize financing, be it institutional obstacles, fiscal, regulatory obstacles, and assess their fiscal space and their policy levers. Are there effective coordinating body for multi-level governance? Are there any contractual agreements in place, as mentioned by the representative from Italy? Are there any dashboards, indicators in the countries? So this information comes in addition to the fiscal data. And having these two dimensions together in this observatory is essential because you have the evidence, the fiscal data, and you have the legislation, the framework, and the strategies. And together with VLR and VSR, we think it's one more step toward having a real acute picture of the degree of decentralization in each country, and also the degree of autonomy, of capacity of the national government, which is really at the heart of the topic. So I will stop here. I think we're short on time, but the next edition will integrate more countries. We hope, in particular, more countries from missing world regions, so Africa, Middle East, and West Asia. And we also plan to include more indicators related to the SDGs and to climate finance. And now that we have this 10-year perspective, it will be a great opportunity to look at how fiscal decentralization and SDG localization have evolved across countries and world regions. So thank you, and happy to answer to the question.
And thank you so much, Charlotte. I don't think if we thank you enough for the work you do at the OECD in terms of measuring and monitoring data, we will think there is so many systems they are monitoring local government finance, and there is, of course, some, but none as comprehensive as the one you lead. So thank you very much for the efforts, because that's what you say is very important. One thing is the commitment on Sevilla, these global processes where countries, member states come together to discuss and to agree on a language, but then that is where the monitoring systems are so important. And of course, there is no monitoring system without a data system. I'm always now at UNDP, we're really a little bit obsessed about how we communicate that data and how we filter that data from our language that is many times complex to communicate and explain to the local governments first, and also to the citizens, what does it mean in terms of school access, hospitals, collecting garbage, public lighting, things that the citizens see in their cities day to day. So coming back to what cities see in their streets, now we go back to a local government. We have with us, let me see if I pronounce it correctly, Anpuonwen Abu Mahama, who's the representative of the mayor of Sekodi Takodi in Ghana. This is a city of 100,000 inhabitants. And I would like to ask Mr. Antoine, I'm going to short it a little bit for easy use, what all this means for you at local level in a city like yours. Is this something that is inspiring you? Is Agenda 2030, is the Sustainable Development Goals, is all this international sustainable development that happens very far from your city is helping you to rethink your local finance? Is this an inspiration? Are you aligning your budget with the SDGs? How does it work in a place like Sekondi Takoradi? Over to you, Antoine.
Thank you very much. I'm so grateful, and good afternoon to you all. I'm representing the mayor of Sekondi Takoradi. He's lawyer Frederick Faustinus Fedu. He's the new mayor. We know Ghana had the general election last year, and the government changed. So to ensure continuity, and the new mayor that came, I am not a politician. I am a technical and a professional person. So I had to take him through the VLR process and what we've done over the years. And then he's so happy to continue the process, and he has already given his commitment to that. Currently, we have some as part of the results from our VLR, we have some engagement with the European Investment Bank to finance some of our projects that are climate and SDG smart under our SDG Smart City program. And so the EIB team is in Secondary Takrady now, and then Mayor is moving around with them, looking at potential sites for our SDG Smart project. And that's why he's not here, and I have to stop and then come and join you to, present on his behalf. So we thank you for this global opportunity, to share our experience as far as our VLR is concerned. First, to your question, yes, we will say that having a VLR is very, very, very important for every local government in the world, because it helps us understand the progress we are making in terms of our contribution as a local authority to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. Two, it also helps us to build capacity in terms of service delivery within the metropolis, because when we prepared the first VLR, which is the 2024 one, we realized that there were a lot of service delivery gaps. There were a lot of areas that we needed to focus on, but we're not focusing on that. So it really gave our management team a lot of information that helped us improve upon our decision making and then planning. It also opened up to us areas where we were lacking in terms of resources. So we were able to identify the resource gap that we have. And then we looked at the data gaps. I heard one of the speakers talking about data gaps. It is a very critical area that we also identified in the Secondary Takrady VLR. And that is a critical point. And this part is where we really need more technical capacity and financial support to build a robust data system that can help us, collect information that we need. We've been talking about sustainable development, but the concept itself is not fully, known or disseminated to the various communities. And so with our VLR, we got that gap. If we had not prepared the VLR, we wouldn't have known that our communities didn't have this understanding. And so we had to engage on a lot of stakeholder engagement at the local level. And so as we speak, that passion for the preparation of the VLR is very, very high in the Secondary Takrady. Then the other one is about collaboration. And when we prepared the VLR, we also realized that it has opened up to giving us a lot of opportunity for collaboration, both locally and internationally. We have had a number of opportunities to make presentations at international forums. I came to Germany last 2 years to present on our VLR, and then this was supported by Engagement Global, SKU, and then DIFU. They supported us to come and make this presentation, and they came to Ghana to build the capacity of the team that is preparing the VLR, and they came to Secondary Takrady to build our team, and so on. So we have had a number of engagement, and based on the findings that we had, we were sponsored by Engagement Global again to go to international forums. We went to the UN High Level Forum to present our findings, which was acclaimed as one of the best. And then we've been encouraged to keep on with the preparation of the VLR. Another important thing that we found was the unemployment situation in the metropolis. If we had not prepared the voluntary local review, we wouldn't have seen that there's still a large gap of unemployment in the metropolis. And that is what we have found. Now, we also realize that there's an issue of accountability and inclusion. And so when we prepared the VLR, we found out that the service delivery and the service providers were not known to the various the citizens, and so we had to engage them to sensitize them on what service as a metropolis we deliver and what we don't. So because we realized that the system thought that, well, everything here should be done by the city authorities. But when we did that and we came out with our role and the role of the citizens, then it came out clearly that, yes, the citizens do have a role to play. The private sector has a role to play. The public, like us, also have a role to play, and all the key stakeholders. So that was also very, very instrumental, and it helped in ensuring social accountability and inclusion. And that was very, very good for us. And the challenge we had was
one more
financing.
Minute.
This is my last point.
Short on time. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. One more minute.
Yes, so financing, and then the way forward. We realized from the preparation of the the VLR that we have spent almost close to 40 million Ghana cedis, which is almost about almost $10 million US dollars on pro-poor activities. And we didn't know this. So the VLR, when we prepared it, we were able to get this information, and that encouraged us a lot. And we were able to use this to advocate for increased budgets from central government. And that's fine. So it enhanced our domestic revenue mobilization. And we also forged public-private partnership for SDGs investment. That's another thing that we did. Then we want to strengthen the fiscal decentralization at our level. And so we did that, and we are advocating for subnational access to climate and development funds, because we need more money to be able to implement the interventions. So these were the key evidence, data, and experiences that we have gathered through the preparation of our voluntary local review report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and sorry because we have really limited time, but thank you for bringing the experience of your city. Yeah. This is exactly what we had in mind when we started working on localizing SDG back in 2015, is how a city like yours find that the framework of the SDGs opens opportunities to integrate action, to measure impact, and maybe to take better decisions. And in the case that you are bringing is also how you detect problems at local level that maybe you would have lost if you didn't have the SDG framework.
Exactly.
And like the accountability and employment in certain parts of the city. And it's wonderful to hear that the SDGs are helping you to enhance local investment in your cities. So thank you very much. And I'm really sorry that we don't have more time to talk, because we could speak about this for 2 hours. But this is our time today. So back to Anna for the rest of the session. And just to tell you that I'm really looking forward to read the new report on localizing SDGs that will be presented next week. I always read that with a lot of attention and underline. And it's super important that we're still bringing the examples, like cities like Sekonditadoki in Ghana and other cities that we hear very rarely here at the UN and in New York. So thank you for that, and looking forward to read your report. Over to you, Anna.
Thank you. Thanks, Diana. Thanks for the moderation. Thanks, colleagues, for your insights. Indeed, we don't have a lot of time, so we won't have a proper questions and answers sections. However, we do have with us Mr. Abraham Mubola, who is the Director of Corporate Services at the Local Government Association of Zambia. And I think it's interesting if we can dedicate 3 minutes to listening to him, because they are actually at the association, they're embarking on their first VSR process. So I really want to hear from him, like how this session has been useful to you, Abraham, and which insights have taken you to reflect on new things, new approaches, and yeah, how you are planning to use all of this in your VSR process that you're starting. So Abraham, if you're with us, happy to hear from you.
Thank you very much, Anna, and good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to everyone. It's been a very interesting session for us, and also looking at the process and also the experience that the cities have shared in terms of how they went about it. We're just trying to raise that awareness in our city, in our country, and we're trying to bring that the awareness of the SDGs and why it is important for local authorities to report on the Sustainable Development Goals. And like it was earlier mentioned by the area speakers from UNDESA, where it says 65% of the SDGs are supposed to be achieved and implemented at a local level. So as an association, we're trying to raise that awareness. And I think one of the things that has really come out is the use of data. And I think it is important that we, even as we embark on this process, to re-emphasize that there's need for evidence-based data for us to report on VLRs that will be able to bring out the actual situation on the ground. And we were helping Lusaka City Council prepare their first voluntary local review, which is still in the process. It's a draft form. And one of the issues that came out is the lack of awareness in the communities about the SDGs and the role of the local authorities in terms of pushing the sustainable development agenda. And looking at the work that the other cities have shared, I think it gives us a challenge that there's a lot of work that we need to do to raise the awareness and also to ensure that our local authorities within Zambia are able to will be able to share some of these programs. And because of our work, we were contacted by someone from the Ministry of Local Government, and they want us to collaborate and combine efforts on ensuring that we raise the awareness of SDG localization and also the VLR amongst local authorities. And so we are excited to be part of the SDG City Network and be able to learn from other cities that have gone ahead of us, and will be consulting. And I want to say thank you to Anna for always being there to assist. And so we look forward to working with everyone on the SDG Cities Network to basically just learn. And we'll hopefully, during the course of this year, we'll be able to share our experience with the first voluntary local review with the Lusaka City Council, but also the voluntary subnational review that the association is embarking on. So thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to just learn from everyone that has spoken so far. Thank you.
Thanks, Abraham, and thanks for putting on the table that each VLR has to have its own objectives, right? Depending on the situation of the city, or in case of VSRs, the situation of the different municipalities or regions that are part of the country. So each VLR and VSR has to pursue its own goals according to the organization's needs. And I'm really happy to be working with you in the preparation of the VSR process, and also congratulations on the first VLR of the country. Looking forward to know more about it. So to wrap up, I will now give the floor to my colleague at UCLG, Sarah Höflich, who is Assistant Secretary General for Service Innovation. Sarah, you have 3 minutes. This is a big challenge, but for everyone to know, in 4 minutes, we're starting the second session of this VLR-VSR Days, so please bear with us these next moments. Thank you, Sara.
Yeah, thank you. It is a pleasure to be here. I'm actually a little bit overlooking the SCG portfolio, and I can only state here that community around localization is stronger every day. It's a big pleasure to see so many faces from years and years and years in the fight and in the work, and I think the recognition is very obvious, so I will not repeat what was said. I just think that we have definitely achieved that this community and localizing and VLR and VSR are an articulator. They are not only a report. There was a lot of reflection around development. I think the session Diana was moderating, and also your excellent summary on the financing for development was showing how important all this work is to come with clear messages and clear entrance points. And I think also this was said by the national government. It was very interesting for me to hear the comment of Marta when she said, what is multi-level governance, and how multi-level governance can push back or can push and strengthen and empower the local authority when they implement what is the general SDG agreement. So I think there were very inspiring points. And of course, we also know our main points, we always come back to them. The main points UCLG stands for is for more decentralization, more autonomy, and in particular fiscal autonomy. And probably the SDGs are now so mature that the work on this and the work well acknowledged of local governments. And I think here the IGS, Fernando, you were very humble in moderating, but actually we read your reports with a lot of passion, because you do a lot of analysis and you show the way forward, how much knowledge and evidence is created that is now globally connected, and really, I think, inside the UN system and changing the UN system. So for us, the localization shows again a big success story. And we also see that definitely, as you all said, the big point on data, the questions, the gaps, or the lack of maintenance maybe has to be addressed, but there are also initiatives coming up. From Barcelona, we have just seen this, but we also see the importance of advocating. So again, looking on this multi-level governance, as this is not institutionalized, and I think Oliver made a good example on Germany, where it is like an obvious taking up of what the local government have done, because then the national government also has more to report. But what we actually want, of course, go here a little bit further with, that's why we are not stopping at the VLR, the local voluntary review of cities. We need the voluntary subnational reviews to be supported, because only if the associations take it up and there is a national-wide bottom-up information channel of what is actually done, then national government will not only use information, but also react more to the information. And this can then connect to the typical advocacy agenda of local government association, that is more finance, more autonomy, more democracy, and of course, more trust in local government, because the trust is not only the point of citizens, the trust is also important between local government levels. And so we thank you very much for the trust you have all showed, working with UCLG, continuing with UCLG. And we are here also to continue. And I thank very much the team. Anna has been leading this, and Matteo and Claudia and many, many others here in the back stand to support you. And of course, Martino's team in Habitat with Marta leading this, and they also, they never stop working and believing in this work. So thank you very much, and see you in 2 minutes in the next session.
Thanks, Sara. Handing over to the DESA colleagues. Carol Pollack and Jürgen Gafke.
Thank you, Anna. And it was a pleasure listening to all the contribution under session 1. I think just if anyone needs a bathroom break, let's see that we have everyone there. Just give a 1-minute break before we start the next session, if that works. All right, thank you. Let me start, I hope. Sorry. Let's not start with the music. I just, while people may come back for the next session, just housekeeping, if anyone wants to speak, as mentioned earlier, we have AI interpretation. The link is available in the chat. If you go back first, you can see it in the chat. The link, if you want to speak and you raise your hand later in the Q&A, please indicate the language you will be speaking in advance, what will help us for the interpretation. Now, I'm about to start. I will just give 1 minute to everyone to come back. So I will start in exactly 1 minute. Thank you. I hope that you have used the time to get yourself some water, a drink, to be refreshed for the next 75 minutes, where we're focusing on session 2 of the 4th edition of the VLR-VSR Days. We are now sharing the experience of speakers from around the world on how participation of all stakeholders in the process of preparing VLRs and VSR, as well as in the post-VLR-VSR process, and how that can accelerate SDG implementation. 10 years ago, the formulation of the SDGs was a result of intensive public consultation and engagement with civil society and other stakeholders, which paid particular attention to the voices of the poorest and most vulnerable. Now, 10 years later in the implementation process, inclusion of all relevant stakeholders to actively contribute in their area of expertise in implementation and review of progress is essential if we want to achieve the SDGs in the just 5 years left until 2030. Now I'm happy to introduce my colleague, Ms. Carol Pollack. Carol is a Senior Sustainable Development Officer at the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs. And UNDESA and she has supported SDG acceleration both through the intergovernmental process, what UNDESA is supporting, including next week's high-level political forum. We have been carrying out research and we have working with national and local governments to advance SDG implementation, in particular through SDG localization. Now, Carol, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Jürgen. Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to session 2 of the 2025 edition of VLR-VSR Days. On behalf of UNDESA, let me again recognize our co-organizers for this event, UCLG and UN Habitat, and to thank them as always for the long-standing partnership that we enjoy. So as Jürgen mentioned, this session focuses on the role of VLRs and VSRs in empowering inclusive, participatory, and intersectional sustainable development from the ground up. And as we know, inclusion and participation have always been central to the SDG implementation. The 2030 agenda is fundamentally of the people, by the people, and for the people. And stakeholder engagement was foundational to the SDGs design, and it remains critical to their success. So we all know, and this has been mentioned in the earlier session, that the world is facing multiple crises today, and this includes social crises. So around the world, we see that societies are contending with deep and widening inequalities. There are demands for social justice, demands for human rights that are too often not being met. There are amplified social divides and growing social isolation, and a growing loss of trust in institutions. So these challenges, they are not isolated, they're interconnected. And when they're left unaddressed, they undermine our social cohesion and they impede our ability to make collective progress on our shared goals. So for these and other crises, we are fortunately not without a compass. We have the 2030 agenda and we have the SDGs, and they provide us a framework and principles that we can use to navigate today's complexities. And the agenda not only calls for inclusive and participatory approaches, it urges us to look beyond the symptoms, the current moment, to think about root causes and to engage all voices and to build pathways forward towards equity and justice. I think everybody here knows, because we've already been told this morning or this afternoon, that with only 5 years remaining, that implementation of the SDGs is unfortunately off track. And as the world works to right the ship, so to speak, local and regional governments from all regions have been working to accelerate action for the SDGs at local levels. And in this area, and many have been providing tremendous leadership, innovation, and inspiration. Really, local and regional governments have been some of the shining stars in the movement to accelerate the SDGs, and we thank you. We thank you for that. One of the ways that local governments have been doing this is, of course, through the preparation of VLRs and VSRs. And among the many benefits that these processes offer is that they bring key opportunities to engage communities meaningfully, not only during the preparation of the reports, but of course, and very importantly, through the actions that follow. So from innovative awareness raising campaigns and approaches to consultations, to collaborations and deeper engagement and partnerships with different stakeholder groups, we are seeing that these processes can show what's possible when participation really moves from just being a principle to being a practice. It can deepen understanding of local priorities, and it can strengthen accountability, and it can help to build trust, rebuild trust, which so often seems to be lacking these days. And importantly, VLRs and VSRs often, they don't just address single issues. They can tackle multiple SDGs and take an intersectional approach. And in doing so, they can help us understand and respond to complex and often overlapping forms and causes of disadvantage. And the work doesn't stop with the final report, because a growing number of communities have gone on to create SDG focused committees. Working groups are working to co-create plans and next steps with stakeholders from their communities to take the momentum beyond the review itself. And that's why today's session is so important. It's an opportunity to explore how meaningfully engaging different segments of our society, including women, youth, older persons, persons with disabilities, Indigenous peoples, those living in poverty, among others, can help us to confront deep social and more broadly sustainable development challenges that we face. So these are really important lessons that we are going to learn from our participants in the session today, and that we will take with us next week to the HLPF and share those messages there as well. We're going to have 2 dialogues this session. The first will focus on how we can best ensure participatory and inclusive VLR and VSR processes themselves. And then the second is going to look a bit more beyond the VLR and VSR to see how those processes can then serve as building blocks for inclusive SDG implementation post-report. And I think Jürgen has already covered the question of asking questions. If you can please put these in the Padlet or the chat. And with this, thank you, and back to you, Jürgen.
Thank you, Carol. And I take at least one point from your remarks, what I would like to emphasize again, that the VLR-VSR process and the inclusion of all stakeholders can really deepen the understanding of local priorities, strengthen accountability, and last not least, build trust. I think that's something what we need in these times, that we need trust and that we need security that our views are heard. And now, in interest of time, let me hand over to my colleague Umberto Soto de la Rosso. Umberto is a social affairs officer in the social development unit of UN-ECLAC in the sub-regional office in Mexico. He has extensive experience in the United Nations, particularly on social and sustainable development processes, regional integration processes, and integration of the SDGs with national and local planning and implementation. Umberto, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jürgen. Hello to everybody. I will speak in Spanish because of the easier translation that our tool that will be used is identifying the languages. So, buenos días a todas y todos. Voy a usar el español para la moderación de esta sesión para que sea más fácil identificar por parte de la inteligencia artificial el idioma original. En esta sesión, como se ha mencionado, vamos a hablar sobre cómo lograr garantizar las revisiones, los informes locales voluntarios y subnacionales voluntarios de una forma participativa e inclusiva. Ya se ha mencionado ampliamente que existe una gran relevancia de elaborar estos informes a nivel local y subnacional, pues muestran las experiencias que cada uno de los territorios pueden realizar para impulsar acciones específicas a favor de la Agenda 2030. Como se ha dicho también, existe un rezago importante en el logro de los objetivos a nivel nacional, a nivel regional y a nivel mundial. Y estamos firmemente convencidos de que los territorios son actores clave de estos procesos de desarrollo para impulsar acciones conjuntas entre los niveles nacionales y locales. Así es que enfocar estos temas relevantes en la agenda internacional para los gobiernos locales también es un reto, un desafío, pero también una oportunidad. Y por supuesto, el proceso tiene que incluir a todos los actores relevantes, actores clave, en particular aquellos que tienen mayores desventajas en los territorios. Estos trabajos de impulsar la territorialización de la Agenda 2030 los hemos venido realizando ampliamente y en estrecha colaboración con nuestros colegas de UNDESA. Realmente tenemos varias aproximaciones a nivel territorial en América Latina y el Caribe y estamos encantados de participar en este proceso. Solamente quisiera hacer una mención específica y posteriormente paso ya a la moderación. Desde la CEPAL, que es la instancia que represento, agradecemos mucho la invitación y queremos compartirles a todas y todos ustedes que hemos elaborado una guía para elaboración de informes locales voluntarios y que también estamos en proceso de desarrollar. Ya hemos desarrollado el curso de territorialización de los Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible en español y próximamente, muy próximamente, también estará disponible en inglés. Todo esto se los voy a poner ahora en el chat. Esto lo remarco justamente para destacar el compromiso que tenemos desde la CEPAL con la elaboración de los informes locales voluntarios, con la importancia que ellos tienen. A continuación, me permitiré dar la palabra a 3 participantes que nos van a compartir experiencias desde distintas latitudes, desde el continente americano, Manabí en Ecuador, desde el continente africano, las experiencias de gobiernos locales en Sudáfrica y de distintos territorios que conforman el país de Eswatini, también conocido como Suazilandia. Tendremos dos espacios de participación. En el primer momento les vamos a pedir a los participantes que por un espacio de 5 minutos nos compartan sus enfoques, lecciones, retos, prácticas innovadoras en la experiencia que han tenido en la elaboración de estos informes locales y subnacionales voluntarios. En primer lugar, me voy a permitir dar la palabra al representante de Ecuador, el señor José Leandro Orlando Arteaga, a quien voy a presentar brevemente. El señor Leonardo Orlando Arteaga ocupó diversos cargos en el Servicio de Rentas Internas, del cual llegó a ser director general. Tiene amplia experiencia como docente de pregrado y posgrado en varias instituciones educativas de su país y ha sido consultor en temas económicos, fiscales a nivel nacional e internacional. Es economista, cuenta con 2 maestrías y es un doctorante de la Universidad de Alicante. Ha tenido varios reconocimientos a nivel nacional e internacional. Actualmente, él es prefecto de la provincia de Manabí en Ecuador, cargo que ocupa desde el año 2019, y es justamente de su experiencia en la elaboración del informe local voluntario de esta provincia que esperamos su participación hasta por 5 minutos. Señor José Leonardo, tiene la palabra.
Muy buenos días acá en Ecuador, buenas tardes a todos en los distintos rincones del planeta, apreciado Humberto, a todos los panelistas y representantes de los gobiernos subnacionales del mundo. Un saludo fraterno desde Manabí, el corazón de la costa del Pacífico ecuatoriano. Agradezco a CGLU y a ONU UNDESA por esta honrosa invitación. Para nosotros en Manabí, el informe local voluntario es mucho más que un ejercicio de diagnóstico territorial y de rendición de cuentas. Es la hoja de ruta de un pacto social, un proceso de política pública activa, comienza por transparentar hacia la cooperación nacional, hacia todos los aliados estratégicos del desarrollo, municipios, el gobierno central. Nosotros tenemos un nivel subnacional de gobierno autónomo que son las juntas parroquiales rurales, que están más cerca de las comunidades que se dedican a las actividades agrícolas, pesqueras artesanales, en la costa como en nuestra campiña interior. Y comenzamos también con una declaración de ese compromiso. Tocamos las puertas en su momento de ONU Habitat, después del Programa de Naciones Unidas para el Desarrollo, también con CEPAL, con varias agencias de las Naciones Unidas, y hemos alineado nuestra planificación y gestión territorial para el desarrollo sostenible a la Agenda Global 2030. Y estamos convencidos de que no hay una fórmula más efectiva para alcanzar los objetivos que tienen un rezago de desarrollo sostenible a nivel global que la localización. Y al factor de localización, nosotros le agregamos un factor muy importante, que es la gobernanza multinivel y la articulación con todos los actores en el territorio, públicos, privados, comunitarios, y un rol muy importante son nuestras universidades manabitas, que están de nuestra provincia, que están articuladas e integradas al plan de desarrollo a través de un consejo consultivo donde participan los rectores y sus equipos técnicos de planificación y gestión institucional. Nuestro enfoque se basa en una profunda convicción que el desarrollo sostenible solo se puede construir desde abajo hacia arriba, a través de un proceso de innovación y gobernanza colaborativa. Por ello, nuestra práctica más innovadora ha sido la creación de un ecosistema de cooperación. El informe local de voluntario de Manabí se nutre del trabajo conjunto en una mesa de planificación multinivel. Nosotros tenemos la facultad de emitir ordenanzas, esa es la facultad normativa que tenemos, y en el pleno del Consejo Provincial, que es nuestro cuerpo colegiado, están representados todos los municipios de mi provincia y hay una representación de las juntas parroquiales rurales de mi provincia. Tenemos también la articulación con el gobierno central a través del Nacional de Estadísticas y Censos para validar la capacidad técnica y estadística de la información y sus posteriores análisis, y de la Secretaría Nacional de Planificación, con la cooperación internacional de la mano del PNUD, ONU Habitat y ahora de CEPAL, y el invaluable aporte de nuestras universidades y de los gobiernos locales de la provincia. Esta colaboración nos ha permitido superar un reto fundamental, pasar de la intuición a la evidencia. Hemos desarrollado una metodología cuantitativa propia, única en el país, y que hoy ha sido referente para otras provincias y municipalidades del Ecuador. En la tercera versión, que es esta del 2025, que reporta o analiza la información del 2024, no solo mide el avance en indicadores, sino que hemos incorporado la ejecución presupuestaria, ¿no? Que todas las instituciones deben de reportar a los ciudadanos y a las instancias pertinentes de ellos. Y adicionalmente, estamos utilizando
Disculpe, se nos bajó un poco el audio. No le escuchamos muy bien. Una disculpa por ese problema técnico. Damos unos momentos a ver si se reconecta. Bien, en aras del tiempo, si les parece bien, podemos pasar con el siguiente panelista y retomamos la conversación del señor Leonardo en unos momentos más.
¿Me escuchan ahí?
Ah, sí, adelante. Gracias.
¿Me escuchan, por favor, Humberto?
Sí, sí, le escuchamos ahora, sí, Leonardo.
Ya, perdón, lamentablemente tuve que viajar hacia otra ciudad y perdí un poco el audio. Les decía para finalizar que hemos incorporado no solo el impacto que tiene nuestra institución a nivel provincial en la agenda de los 17 Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible, sino toda la contribución territorial de todos los demás niveles de gobierno, y con un formato que asegure que la información es...
Volvimos a perder al señor Leonardo. Bien, vamos a pasar entonces con el siguiente panelista. Posteriormente retomaremos la comunicación. A continuación, tendremos la participación de parte de el señor Teabogu Matlow. Él cuenta con una larga trayectoria como gerente de aprendizaje de proyectos, como el proyecto para la construcción de municipios verdes inclusivos en el Cabo Oriental. Cuenta con una formación académica diversa que incluye las licenciaturas en Ciencias Sociales y Comercio y la maestría en Negocios y Administración, con un enfoque en el desarrollo sostenible y la gobernanza local. El señor Teobogu ha ganado varios premios por su rol en gestión de proyectos. Actualmente es gerente de proyectos para programas y alianzas internacionales en la Asociación Sudafricana de Gobiernos Locales. Lidera iniciativas que fomentan la colaboración entre municipios sudafricanos y socios internacionales en desarrollo sostenible y en gobernanza local, teniendo como un logro su liderazgo en el apoyo a 10 ciudades de Sudáfrica para desarrollar los informes locales voluntarios. Señor Teabogu, le doy la palabra hasta por 5 minutos, por favor. Mr. Teabogu, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon to all of you. I'm trying to put my video so that you can see the lighting. I must change the setup. No, thank you very much. But I'll switch off the video for connectivity. But I'm happy to be here for us as Salga to share how we have done the VLR, the VSR, because they move together. I call it the parallel session of achieving the world condition meter with three things: the economy, socially, and the environment. So how Salga, we did it as an organization, we adopted a facilitative and a capacity building approach to support municipalities. And not only municipalities, Chair, we also supported government departments in preparing the national voluntary local reviews and the subnational reviews. So those were one of the key areas. Our focus was not only on local ownership, but we focused on multi-stakeholder engagement, because we knew that the participation of stakeholders, including different civic society organizations, was very key. Our key pillars for the approach was as follows. We had a capacity building and a technical support where through UNDESA and UNDP, we managed to get a consultant to guide some of the work that it was required. However, we did a tailored training and a mentorship for municipal officials in relations to the alignment of the SDG. And we use our what you call integrated development plan as a baseline for us to align with the SDGs. And the second pillar was partnership-driven implementation, where the collaboration with UNDP, UNDESA, UCLG for the VSR, and recently we also connected with Connective Cities to access the global methodologies and tools. So the baseline was what UNDESA, UNDP, UN Habitat, and UCLG had as a baseline. The multi-stakeholder engagement was a broad participation where we included civil society organization, the youth, traditional leaders, where they play a key role, especially with rural municipalities, the academia, the private sector. But because of our model, we had to include ward committees in most of the session. The data integration, which is one of the challenges that I'm going to speak about, it was used to strengthen the use of local indicators. We used the metadata that was provided, also shared by Carol in one of the sessions. And the issue was the challenge with citizen-generated data, especially for municipal planning to inform the SDG reporting. We are not yet there, but we'll be there. The lesson that we learned was ownership. We needed municipalities to own this issue. Hence, in our process, we requested municipalities and the mayors to take the report to council before we can take them into the process, so that it's part of the project that is going to be reported, and existing governance structures are more likely to sustain the process. So we identify even key people who became municipal SDG champion, the one that we're working on IDP. Let me allow to say this, Chair. They say one size fits all, but with the SDGs, it doesn't work like that. The 65% of the SDGs are at local government, but the approach that we use was one size does not fit all. The context there and the approach was to support a differentiation approach with different models for metros, secondary cities, and rural municipalities. So we've got three categories of municipalities. So as I said, one size does not fit all. And building internal capacity was also one of the key, because we work with Stats SA, Statistics South Africa, we work at cooperative governance and traditional affairs. The key one was to work with the Ministry of Water and Sanitation, and we became the chair of the SDG country report. because of how we have managed to bring everybody together. The last point on peer learning was which was a powerful tool for us. It was exchange between municipalities via platforms like Connective Cities, UCLG, Africa, the SARU, including the United Nations platforms, the UNDESA, the UNDP arrangement, but also the GIZ also played that key role through Connective Cities. So we realized that if you wanna walk a long distance, you need other people to be with you. The key challenges that I'm gonna close about, Chair, was few on data availability and disaggregation of that data. Because of the localized data is very difficult to get. And we are saying, especially in small towns and rural areas, we need to develop a hub, an SDG hub, where municipalities can be able to reposit some data there. Coordination with national system, it was a key. Hence, you see local government was nowhere to be found with our first report, but with a report in 2024, 2025, for the first time, we had 10 cities being part of the national voluntary national reviews, including the country report. Resource constraints, our capacity building was different because we had to spend a month. Within a month, we spent 3 to 4 days with municipalities to write up the report. So that's how we have been cascading it down, so that we didn't leave it to them for them to ensure that they are also on their own. But through civic society organization, that's where the awareness of the SDGs came into effect, because we realized that even as part of the challenges, it's a low public awareness of SDGs, because people think it's at the high level for people to do that. Innovative practice for SALGA is to integrate SDG VL toolkit, develop community scorecards and social audits, because are very key. And the VLR data labs are very key, but digital participation platform also through survey storytelling campaign, which is one of the key things that we are proposing, that we need to tell a story and align that story with projects that municipalities are implementing in local government, especially that include the marginalized voices in our process. So the global network is also key, Chair. So I'm gonna stop there, because as SALGA, we are continuing to champion inclusive, locally grounded and globally informed approaches, not only for the VLR and VSR, but also aligning with other global program like Agenda 2063, the SADC 2053, and see where is the alignment. Because once you get that one, then you are going not to leave no one behind in the continent and globally. So thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tebogo. Well, now we are going to switch again to Spanish. Voy a presentar en español las siguientes participantes. Tendremos la participación de la señora Sakile Nsibantse, representante del gobierno de Eswatini en eventos internacionales, que ha promovido procesos participativos para empoderar a las comunidades de la Agenda 2030. Ha colaborado con el Ministerio de Comercio e Industria como miembro del Consejo de Empoderamiento Económico Ciudadano, y ha fundado comunidades enfocadas en la defensa del medio ambiente. Ha organizado y participado en importantes eventos creativos e intelectuales, y actualmente es la presidenta de la Cámara de Comercio e Industria de la Juventud de Eswatini, una entidad que impulsa el emprendimiento juvenil y el desarrollo sostenible. Ella va a hablar conjuntamente con el señor Bonke Motza, quien es el vicepresidente de la misma Cámara de Comercio e Industrias de la Juventud de Eswatini, y quien ha sido director de instituciones que promueven el desarrollo artístico y que han colaborado en la administración de diversas empresas, promoviendo las iniciativas económicas inclusivas para la juventud de Eswatini. Mrs. Sakile, Mr. Bonke, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sakile Nsibande, and I am from the small kingdom of Eswatini. And I'd like to introduce, I'd like to start by greeting my moderator, Mr. Hambeto, and all fellow speakers and attendees. And I'll be representing Eswatini's youth and I'm very honored to share our journey towards inclusive and participatory VLRs and VSRs to accelerate the Sustainable Development Goals. Eswatini is committed and dedicated to the 2030 Agenda and Agenda 2063, with progress noted in SDGs like Health, SDG 3, and Gender Equality, SDG 5. But challenges remain in localizing SDGs due to systemic barriers. How are we amplifying every voice in Eswatini to inclusive development through local reviews? What we have been doing is learning from the VNR report and empowering our communities. Our session today is about something that is incredibly vital, making sure every single voice in Eswatini counts and building better futures for all of us. We're here to highlight how meaningfully engaging different groups, our women, youth, older persons, persons living with disabilities, and those in rural and remote areas, and our local development reviews can truly transform our country. It's not just about ticking boxes at this point, it's about addressing the real social challenges we face and strengthening how we work together, bridging any divide between sectors, and most importantly, ensuring that no one is left behind. Our ultimate goal is joint action to build a more just, inclusive, and sustainable Eswatini. In our journey, like many nations, we are committed to the Sustainable Development Goals, those global promises for a better world by 2030. Our voluntary national review is essentially our country's report card on how we're doing with these goals. And what makes these VNR reports so special is that it is a game changer. For the first time, we've gone deeper, looking specifically at the progress and challenges right here in our local communities. The more our municipalities bravely volunteer to participate, providing insights for the grassroots, the further we are accountable to the acceleration of SDGs. National data can sometimes hide the specific realities of our villages and towns, but by listening to local voices, we uncover unique challenges like the need for better sanitation in rural Chiselweni, or the specific hurdles faced by youth seeking employment in Manzini. The reports highlight how, through inclusive consultations, bringing in a broad spectrum of stakeholders, women, youth, and persons with disabilities, and those in our rural communities, we can achieve clear indicators with directives for change. Bridging the divides and joining our actions, we have done the next pointers. We have identified specific needs. This actually helps us to move beyond general problems to pinpoint specific needs. For instance, it's not just poverty, but understanding it's for women farmers in Lubombo, or the challenges faced by elderly caregivers. We are able to tailor our solutions. When we hear directly from communities, we can actually design solutions that truly work for their unique context rather than a one-size-fits-all approach. We're also able to strengthen participation. The VLR process itself is a powerful example of a participatory governance. Through workshops, focus groups, and consultations, we actively involve the most affected by the SDGs. And we're also bridging divides. This process actually brings together different government ministries, civil society organizations, and local community groups. When they see the same local challenges through shared input, it fosters collaboration and breaks down traditional silos. And ensuring that nobody is left behind, the report focuses on the vulnerable. For example, it highlights the commendable increases in women's representation in parliament. It also points out the persistent high youth unemployment rates, or the need to improve access to services for persons with disabilities. These are direct reflections of the voices heard during our VLR processes. And lastly, maybe an addition to what we would like to see done in our VLR processes, that we would like to engage more digitally. So we have a call to action where use the use of a chat. How do we make this process even more continuous, more accessible, and more impactful? How do we ensure Eswatini's voice is heard not just during a review period, but whenever we have something to share? A powerful tool such as an AI chatbot, which we are actually reviewing in our organization, is something that can be used to actually provide real-time data for the VLR process. Imagine a tool where VNRs can be heard instantly directly from the phone. This chatbot can be designed to revolutionize how we gather insights, share vital information, and inform the public on SDGs and current projects. This allows easy reporting. We can easily share local challenges, successes, and ideas right from the mobile device, and we can have instant information. If you want to know more about what SDG 6 does, for instance, clean water, it means clean water for your village. The chatbot can explain it in simple language with local examples that are relevant to Eswatini. And there's also the allowance of continuous engagement. This is a once-a-year survey. This isn't a once-a-year survey. You can engage whenever you have something to say, providing ongoing feedback. And lastly, it is reaching the unreached. For those in remote areas or who find it difficult to attend physical meetings, this chatbot offers an accessible way to participate, truly ensuring that no one is left behind. Engagement would actually be made very easily and can directly inform our next steps, ensuring that Eswatini's development can truly leave no one behind. With that, I would like to end my presentation and thank you for your attention. Together we can build a more just, inclusive, and as a sustainable world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Sakile. Regreso a español. En las intervenciones que hemos escuchado, hemos logrado detectar que unos elementos relevantes tienen que ver con el enfoque de la convicción, de realizar estos informes y del trabajo que deriva de esos informes a favor de la Agenda 2030, coordinación entre los gobiernos nacionales y subnacionales, el desarrollo de metodologías propias, el trabajo integrado, la importancia de la apropiación de los municipios en los temas y de digitalizar justamente la participación y de utilizar herramientas para que las voces sean mejor escuchadas. Y por supuesto algunos temas específicos de grupos poblacionales, para lo cual me quisiera enfocar en una pregunta, una segunda pregunta, para la cual les pediría que durante un minuto nos dijeran cuál sería su principal reto al que se enfrentaron para incorporar voces de los grupos poblacionales más rezagados y cómo lo resolvieron. Un minuto muy breve. Voy a iniciar en orden inverso. We will give the for 1 minute to Sakile Nsibanse to tell us in 1 minute which was the principal challenge you faced and how you solved in order to incorporate the voices of the most vulnerable people. Please.
So what was done was actually a scrutiny from our local governments. They are the ones that brought in the representatives from their communities to come for the session. So that is one thing that we actually did to provide inclusivity. We had a good distribution of different demographics within the group. We had people living with disabilities. We had people that were elders from the communities as well as the young. And I think it was a fair representation. But I think with the addition of the chatbot, we would be able to actually achieve more inclusivity within these sessions.
Okay, thank you. Le voy a dar la palabra también al señor Tebogu Matlu para que nos responda. Mr. Tebogu, please.
Yes, no, thank you very much. We had a few, but I'm gonna say about one of the key challenges was the language and literacy barriers, which was one of the key issues, and digital exclusion. And that was one of the things that we had to partner with local civil society organization so that whenever we are having this engagement, they also talk the language, the local language. So that way was able to conceptualize into local languages and using low tech engagement methods to engage these things. The school-based engagement also with one of our key, we did that. Lastly is that the mistrust of government or formal structures was also one of the key things. And we need to improve that so that we can improve the lack of awareness for the communities to participate in the SDGs, especially the youth, because we're developing a future for the young ones. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Y le daría la palabra también al señor Leonardo, no sé si está por allí, para que
Sí,
nos
estamos
dé
por aquí. Sí,
su
estimado
mensaje de un
Humberto.
minuto, por
Sí,
favor.
lo hemos hecho dándole voz a quienes no tenían voz, por ejemplo, en la brecha del objetivo 5 de igualdad de género y objetivo 10 de reducción de desigualdades, hemos incorporado a las mujeres víctimas de violencia a través de un proyecto que responde con oportunidades de inclusión económica y la economía del cuidado. Asimismo, hemos fortalecido la creación de políticas públicas que incluyan a los jóvenes y a los adolescentes y también a la población en situación de movilidad de nuestra provincia y a las personas que forman parte de los grupos LGTBIQ+, una política específica para estos colectivos y en base a los 17 ODS. Y es decir, hemos superado el reto de la participación y la inclusión, haciendo que el propio informe sea una herramienta para crear los mecanismos que garanticen esa participación. Es decir, no hablamos sobre ellos, sino construimos junto a ellos y por ellos. Ese es el enfoque de participación e inclusión de todos los que antes no han tenido voz.
Muchas gracias. No tendría más que añadir. Creo que ha sido bastante claro la participación de nuestros tres participantes, representantes. Esa búsqueda de que haya voces integradas dentro de los informes locales voluntarios y subnacionales voluntarios, y la participación que ellos tienen va a ser relevante para lograr conseguir la Agenda 2030 en el futuro. Cerraría entonces aquí mi moderación. Voy a dejarles en el chat la información que les comentaba previamente sobre nuestros cursos en la CEPAL y nuestras herramientas para que ustedes puedan elaborar mejores y mayores informes locales voluntarios en el futuro. Muchísimas gracias. Le regreso la palabra a Jürgen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Umberto. And that was very interesting insights from the participants, and seeing also when I listened to the Boko and the participant also from Eswatini, how do we bring forward, bringing all the stakeholders together and bringing the local level, looking at the local conditions, and make sure that not one size fits all, but that we look at what is the potential, what is the priorities of the local communities, how can we bring them in, and how can we build up on the capacities, what is available, including of the young people and women and other entrepreneurs who can contribute to the implementation. Anyway, now between these two dialogues, we have changed the sequence of the second session slightly. I would like to invite Ms. Bidushree Sadhukan on her key remarks on meaningful stakeholder engagement in the VLR-VSR processes. Bidushree is an associate director with ICLE South Asia and is leading the sustainable management team there. ICLE, as you know, is a global network with more than 2,500 local and regional governments committed to sustainable urban development. Shruti is an expert on resilience planning and implementation, water sanitation, gender inclusivity with municipalities in South Asian countries. Shruti, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jürgen. So I would just like to start a little bit about our experience, ICLE's experience of working on VLRs and developing VLRs for cities in South Asia. So what we do, like you said, ICLE does work with cities on sustainable development, and of course SDGs are an integral part of it. So we do work with cities and promote sustainable development, but I have personal experience with 3 cities where I have worked with them to develop their VLR reports. And so I would like to talk a little bit about what we had done for stakeholder engagement in preparing these VLRs. But before I go into that, I would just like to probably highlight that why do we want to localize the SDGs? So we've been hearing a lot about localizing the SDGs, VLRs, VSRs, but typically what happens is that the global commitments, the national policies, all of them are of course large scale, but the implementation of all of this happens at the local level. So the local governments, it's extremely important to kind of engage with them to prepare and to understand what are the requirements at the local level, because the needs, the priorities, all of them are different in different local governments in different cities, basically. And so the same targets, the same indicators is very difficult to be used effectively if you stick to those things. So it's important to kind of contextualize the different indicators of the SDGs when you're preparing the VLRs. And that's where the engagement with the stakeholders really plays an important part. I think what happens is that, the basic principles of leaving no one behind, the need for a evidence base, a robust evidence base to actually prepare these kind of reports. It's very important, and it's very crucial to involve the stakeholders in preparing these VLRs, because what we see is that they provide an opportunity to bring about different information about the city, which is not necessarily recorded. So we have data, like we were hearing so much about the lack of data at the local level. And these are the stakeholders, the local stakeholders. If we can involve them effectively, they can really be a repository of local level data. And I was really impressed with what the lady before me was talking about, using a chatbot to kind of gather information. That's actually a really interesting concept, and probably something that can be explored more. What I feel is that there are, of course, multiple benefits to engagement with the local stakeholders, and like they do create an institutional ownership. It's important for the VLRs to not only be owned by the municipalities, the local governments, but also by the people of the city, because ultimately the implementation has to be collaborative. The implementation of what you want to do to achieve your SDGs would actually have to be collaborative. So it's very important to actually have an institutional system and kind of have a process of engaging with stakeholders to be able to bring them up in the entire process. So not only just having them at the implementation level, but also during the planning, during the understanding, the preparation of the VLRs, all of that. And so these stakeholders meetings can also provide, like I said, data. They help to validate the information that is collected. They help us to identify the different local, very local, hyper-local challenges and critical sectors that need to be addressed. And it helps to also link the city's priorities to the SDGs. So whenever we are preparing a VLR, what ICLEI does is that we try to localize all the indicators. Whatever indicators that the SDGs have, we localize them and we change them. We sometimes change them to reflect the realities of the particular city. And so the stakeholders actually really help in this process. The way we do it in ICLEI is that we have, whenever we are working with the city, we have a project nodal officer. A nodal officer is located in the municipality, and he is kind of the in charge of running the entire process. It may not be a very high level officer, but it has to be somebody who can engage with all the different levels of officers in the municipality. So that kind of a nodal officer is always appointed. Then there is a core team within the municipality, which will contribute to the entire process, because when we are making a VLR report, it is not only one sector that we are focusing on. It has multiple sectors. All the indicators of the SDGs, they cross-link, they are cross-sectoral. You look at poverty, you look at access to services, you look at different things, water, sanitation, you look at education, health, all of that kind of cross-sectoral. So the core team has to have members from all these different departments within the municipality who are kind of leading the action on these sectors. And then there is the larger stakeholder group. The stakeholder group will include then different sectors, different departments, NGOs, institutions, anybody and everybody basically. And then that stakeholder group must also have the representation of the marginalized groups, the representation of women, of children and elderly, disabled. All of these need to be represented here. so that their needs, their priorities can also be highlighted when we are talking about the VLR. And maybe just three things where I know we're running late, so I'm going to really condense all of this into just three main points, which I think municipalities can keep in mind when they're preparing the VLRs of how to engage with stakeholders. I think one of the things, the most important thing, what we found is to have a formal engagement process, have a plan of how we want to engage, when do we want to engage, with whom do we want to engage, and why do we want to engage with people. So having that kind of a plan really helps to streamline the entire process of actually having the stakeholder engagement during the preparation of the VLR. We also need to be flexible. Sometimes we need to modify the stakeholder group. Sometimes we need to include somebody else, or maybe we do not need to engage with somebody for everything. So all these adjustments need to be done at the spur of the moment, and therefore it is important to be flexible when we are engaging with populations. Then the third point is that having relevance of the discussions. We don't want to discuss everything with everybody. It is not going to be relevant. People will get bored. They will not be engaging with you. And so it's very important that when we are engaging with different stakeholders, we make it contextualized to their sectors. So whatever is important to them, we discuss on that. Whatever they can contribute to, we discuss on that. So that also includes this, ensures the social inclusion. When we're talking about women, their priorities, when we're talking about the disabled, their priorities, their needs, how do we get all these people to talk to each other, and how do we get them to actually contribute to that larger, the VLR process? So that kind of a thing, if we can keep these kind of three things in mind, I think the stakeholder engagement process can be really helpful and successful in shaping the VLR of your city. So I'm going to end there. I'm happy to engage with anybody. I'll leave my email address in the chat as well. Kindly feel free to reach out to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shruti. That was very insightful, and we take note. Also, I would like to encourage everyone to put their contribution in the chat. Use also the Padlet, and where we have posted the link before. And we will analyze what comes out of these sessions today and try to bring these messages also to the HLPF next week. So please keep this community, keep the chat, keep the Padlet, and try to exchange ideas. Now, I would like to hand over to Dialogue 2. We are running slightly behind schedule. Let me introduce and pass over to the moderator, Andrea Ferranini. Andrea is a coordinator for the local development unit at ARCO, the Action Research for Co-Development in Italy. And Andrea has done extensive research on sustainable human development, industrial policies and social progress, international development cooperation, sustainable development goals, sustainability transition, youth participation, among other parts. Andrea, can I pass over to you?
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jürgen. And it's nice to meet all of you again in these very important days, VLR and VSR days. Let me first thank UNDESA, UCLG, and UN Habitat for setting these days together and for inviting me to moderate this important session. I'll do my best also to be the bad guy in keeping time and conclude by 5 o'clock here. So thanks for the introduction, Jürgen. Yes, as you said, I'm working for an Action Research Center. I'm copying here in the chat the link to our website. And we had the chance in the past 10 years to support some local authorities in Italy in their VLR-VSR processes. Also the Italian Ministry for the Environment in preparing the Italian VLR guidelines. And I think Italy is one of the few countries in the world with its own national VLR guidelines. Also, we're working on European funded projects on SDG localization and interacting with several UN agencies. And for this reason, I think it's fundamental that we highlight for this dialogue three main points. First, I really believe that VLR and VSRs are really the voluntary process, even much more the voluntary national reviews, because somehow voluntary national reviews, there is an enforcement, there is an accountability mechanism by the UN to national governments to prepare their VNRs, while from local authorities, VLRs are really voluntary processes. And also the local strategies, the local agendas for the SDGs are really voluntary processes. I think this is important to recognize because it's the real nature of this big community of practice where we are all part of this since 2015. And we may recognize that we are not here simply to exchange knowledge and practices. We are here to realize day by day that we are in our different local contexts, in our different organizations, we are the real actors of change, the real ones implementing the SDGs in the communities. So that's why I really believe the VLR-VSR processes are detrimental because, again, they are the real voluntary processes on SDG implementation. As a second point, I just wanted to highlight that it's clear to all of us that in these turbulent times, and considering that we are running out of time to reach the SDGs, the only answer is an integrated answer. It's an integrated response to the 5 Ps. We can't simply stick and take the SDGs as randomly separated. We are realizing right now that peace is very center of sustainable development. But then if we want to take the 5 Ps together as integrated, as stated into the Agenda 2030, then we need all actors to implement and to act on this. We can't simply ask, and I am a citizen in this case, we can't simply ask local governments or national governments to take care of the SDGs. We need all societal stakeholders to be on board. We surely need enterprises. We surely need academia. We fundamentally need citizens and civil society, even formalized civil society organizations, but also informal groups to be part of VLR and VSR processes, but even more to be a part of what comes after. So SDG implementation processes at all levels. So it's only by engaging all actors that we can have an integrated response. That's why we are curious to know in the next 15 minutes about the experience of 2 places really in engaging societal stakeholders in their action plans for SDG implementation. And as a last point, before leaving the floor to our distinguished speakers, I just wanted to highlight again something that was mentioned before, which is the importance of having the youth as real actor of change in VLR-VSR processes, but especially in SDG implementation processes. I think we can't simply consider the youth as the citizens of tomorrow. The youth are the citizens of today, first of all. We can't simply engage with the youth. We need to place them at the center seat of leading SDG implementation, because the youth today are, and the youth today will be, our activists, our entrepreneurs, our scholars, our public officials, above all. That's also why in Florence, in Italy, we have piloted the first youth local review, which is probably one of the first pilot initiatives in the international arena where the VLR was done precisely by the youth to push for SDG implementation on those priority areas that were identified by themselves through different methods and different actors. And I can obviously share materials and more examples on youth local reviews. So again, I would like to stress and leave the floor to our speakers to highlight that we are really the ones leading systemic change through our voluntary action, that the integrated response requires all societal actors to be on board, and especially to have the youth as the driving actor of SDG implementation processes. I'll now introduce our 2 distinguished speakers. We first have Miss Nevana Zrikison from South Africa, from Mtekwini Metropolitan Municipality. We are all aware that South Africa is one of the most advanced countries in Sub-Saharan Africa in SDG implementation and in SDG localization. So we are very keen to know from the experience of this municipality. And then we will have Mr. Akram Kriesat from Amman, from Jordan, who has been the front-runner city in the Middle East and North Africa region on SDG implementation. To both speakers, I will ask to share their own experience, lessons, challenges, and practices. in meaningfully engage with stakeholders in post VLR VSR processes, and then as a second quick round, just to give a snapshot idea of lessons learned and advice to other local authorities. So, Ms. Nevana, first of all, the floor is yours. Obviously, if you want to add a few additional words on yourself and your work, you have 5 minutes maximum, and thanks in advance for sharing your experience with us.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Good afternoon, colleagues. It's a pleasure to join you this afternoon, and thank you for the invite to join. So I work for the eThekwini municipality in Durban, South Africa, and my duties actually involve performance monitoring and evaluation. However, I like to refer to myself as a municipal practitioner because I also believe that, we're not all just designated to particular roles. And it's our duty to actually help municipalities to succeed in whatever they do. In the interest of time, I think, let me just tell you a little bit about our VLR process. We were part of the 10 cities that completed the VLR in 2024, and my colleague Tebogo alluded to that in the previous dialogue. So some of our experiences included the fact that whilst we were working on our VLR, we realized that in as much as we were already engaging with stakeholders for things like the indicator localization process, we were engaging with businesses on SDG efforts, etc., it still was not enough. And we came to the realization that we really did need to do more around stakeholder opinions. So it brought to light the fact that the type of engagement that we had to do also needed to be expanded. And we didn't just need to obtain their opinions, but we needed to get residents and businesses and other stakeholders in the city involved in the SDG initiatives in the city. We did have amazing collaborations from our partners, both locally and internationally, in the preparation of that VLR, and that continues in the work that we're doing at the moment. It was also important, we found, to share the experiences, our challenges, the knowledge that we gained, lessons that we learned with our colleagues, and that fostered further collaboration and learning, and it continues to do so as we proceed with SDG implementation. Some of our challenges, colleagues, I think included the fact that we still have silo mentalities in a lot of the environments that we work in. It leads to wasted resources, and of course, it doesn't allow us to achieve the maximum benefit from our engagements. So that is, again, where things like partnerships and collaboration come into play. It was also difficult sometimes to find the correct audience to engage. We found that some of our engagements were not with the right types of people. So some of the people that attended were not even interested in contributing to the VLR or anything dealing with the SDGs. They were there for unrelated reasons. And I think that's where it became more important for us to engage with organizations like community organizations that ensured that the audience that attended our engagements was correct. Of course, colleagues spoke about financing earlier. So financing was a challenge for both our SDG activities and the projects that we continue to undertake. Lack of data has already been spoken about. So again, in the interest of time, I won't elaborate on that point. But let me proceed to then talk about some of the lessons that we learned in the process of our VLR that have also helped us with the ongoing work. We did find that there was still insufficient awareness of the SDGs. We've had quite a bit of success in this area in terms of the initiatives that we've implemented. That includes the use of storytelling, the use of murals that we developed on the SDGs in and around the city. And those murals were actually developed via processes of workshops. So we engaged in workshops with people that worked in the functional area of the SDG. So if it was on climate change, it was with organizations that worked on climate change, and they came up with the actual ideas for the murals. They also helped to paint those murals. We engaged with youth in the same way. We produced videos on a lot of the SDG projects that the city is doing that didn't traditionally have the eye of the community. So community didn't know about those projects, and these short videos have actually helped us to let the community know, firstly, more about the SDGs, and secondly, what our municipality is actually doing about achieving those SDGs. We've also published a comic book that helped us to increase awareness about the SDGs with the youth and actually anybody that wants to read it. I've included links to some of these in the Padlet, so it's free resources that anybody is welcome to use. We also found that a lot of the SDGs were actually aligned to our municipal mandate, so it was nothing new. All we needed to do was coordinate the information about those projects that were helping us to achieve the SDGs, and then to start reporting on those particular projects. We secondly or thirdly realized that a lot of organizations and individuals are really open to collaboration. We just needed to reach out and find those particular organizations and individuals. It again eradicated a lot of the duplication that was being experienced. It helped us to get a lot more data. And it's actually led us to the point where we are now collaborating with some of these organizations to enhance the data that we do have to prepare our next voluntary local review. We then, we realized that with a lot of the SDGs, it requires that government and organizations be innovative. And government is not necessarily in the space where innovation is welcomed. So it's a lesson that we learned and something that needs to be dealt with as we proceed, not just for the SDGs, but for continuity of service delivery and improvement in government operations. Let me then continue to look at some of the innovative practices
1 minute,
that we...
sorry, Nevada, still 1
No
minute.
problem.
Thank you.
Some of the innovative practices that we've put into place. I've spoken already about our communication methods and how we've found alternative methods around how we communicate with members of the public. So it's not your traditional methods anymore. We've partnered with organizations on their existing projects to enhance how those reach community members. Then we are now trying to craft projects with stakeholders in mind. So not just involving them for opinions, but co-crafting of those projects. So the community gets involved as we proceed. We've introduced something called hackathons, where we bring in community members to help us to identify solutions to problems. That also includes things like the human security assessments that we're rolling out in conjunction with UN Habitat. And then finally, we are now looking at digital transformation efforts in collaboration with other organs of state, community organizations and academia included. So it provides us with more data for planning and decision making, as well as for advancing the SDGs and the monitoring and reporting thereon. I'll just finish, Andrea, with your last question on what advice we have for other local governments. I think for me is the fact that we definitely do need to consult with other organizations, so community-based organizations and academia, both for advancing the SDGs, but also for getting them to help us to get community members involved in the initiatives, and finally for data collection for reporting. Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you very much, Nevana. You shared very important and real case experiences from your work, and thanks also for the clear advice on consultation from your own experience. We'll now move to the experience from Amman. So, Mr. Akram, the floor is yours. And again, also in this case, if you can share briefly the experience of stakeholder engagement in post-VLR efforts in Amman, and then also give a quick advice to other local authorities engaging in similar processes. The floor is yours. Thank you. I don't know, Mr. Akram, if you are here with
Do you
us.
hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for having me. And I will start, we are in Amman. We are the first Arab city that conducted the our first VLR also. And we recognize in Amman city our needs for VLR. We believe in the needs of Amman city for planning based on evidence through accurate data and information. And we believe in the importance of SDGs for developing and improving the performance of the city in all aspects: social, cultural, environmental, economic. And also we are working now on initiative of quality of life index, a global layer, and also our need in Amman city to harmonize the achievement of national goals, royal initiatives, and SDGs derived from the best practices of all the city. So we believe in Amman city that the voluntary local review is not a tool. This report is not a tool, but it's a process. So it was a good chance for Amman city that launched its first VLR in parallel with VNR, Voluntary National Review at national level, with full alignment working with the national team. Strengthening the VNR with evidence and accurate data at the city's level in Amman, in Jordan. Also, VLR came to measure the city performance in achieving SDGs to reach outstanding performance in the year of 2030. When we are working, we just initiate like an internal team for the GAM, Greater Amman Municipality, just to work and start to build a network with the partners and stakeholders in all over the city. We worked with the academia, civil society, also governmental departments, all the players in the city. And at the same time, I present Amman City with a voluntary national review team, and we worked in full alignment. And both VNR and VLR discussed the progress towards SDGs government initiatives in the in the different scales. With 42% of inhabitants in Jordan living in Amman, VNR describes the development dynamics particularly relevant to Amman. VNR's data sources from VLR, which also focus on national level dynamics and policy initiatives. VNR also include insights into development challenges facing Amman city. Our partners, we worked with our partners and stakeholders for 1 year just to collect the data and to enhance the process of collecting the data, even though we are producing data in Amman municipality, but there are from our partners Department of Statistics, which is legally can provide us with accurate and updated data. So we work together in a participatory methodology and participatory approach according to the UN principle, leaving no one behind and no place behind. And one of the most impact our first VLR on Amman cities mainstreaming the SDGs, integrating the SDGs into policies, programs, partnerships, and municipal operations. And a core outcome of Amman's first VLR, the focus on energy, building, housing, also public transport, reflects the commitment to sustainable urban infrastructure. Also, a new approach in participatory planning process, emphasizing in participatory planning process and delivering the resilient infrastructure vital for achieving the SDGs. Also, new urban agenda and SDG 11, aligning the VLR with the new urban agenda 2030 and promoting SDG 11, which focuses on making the cities inclusive and safe, resilient, and sustainable, is a key outcome. Implementing new urban agenda at the local level underscores the importance of our collaboration between local and national initiatives and between both of levels. Also, another impact of Amman's first VLR, inclusive city planning. Amman's first VLR highlights the city commitment to creating an inclusive urban environment where no one is left behind. The city actively incorporates the needs of all the residents, including magnified groups, also municipal policies, strategies, and urban development projects. Also, this report was evidence-based report. So we reflect this on our evidence-based policy and IT capabilities, promoting evidence-based policies and building IT capabilities is essential for data-driven decision maker. This aligns with the need for modern and technical-enabled urban management. Also, we adopt the SDG in national and local strategies, integrating SDGs in both national strategies and the Greater Amman municipality strategies. We launched our strategic plan 22-26 showcases a commitment to long-term sustainability and infrastructure. Also,
can I ask you if you can also go to the conclusion and give your one main advice that you may give to other cities who are engaging in inclusive city planning?
I think the main advice is just to highlight the importance of partnership, because one of the most challenge that we have faced in Amman City is collecting the data. I mean, we launched our first VLR 2022 after the pandemic or at the end of the pandemic. So some bodies in the city does not publish their reports, their data, their indicators. So I think this is the important thing, just to build the networks, partnership with the stakeholders and the data producers. Also, another lesson just to it's related to challenges. It's institutional challenges. I mean, we have to need to build capacities for the teams who worked on it. Also, we have to build capacity for the institutions who will work on the localizing of SDGs. And I think we have some lesson learned from this, our first VLR, is data protection collection must be centralized at the municipal level, because most of the data we found it at national level, and it was a challenge for us. And we have to strengthen the relations between various data producers towards the development of urban data, just to enhance the whole process of collecting and producing data. Also, using the international standards for data production, it will be good for the cities who will start working or conducting the VLR. In Amman City, just now we are in the process of the second review. We are working on more SDGs. We are trying to show our success stories from first VLR. We just present our projects on Earth, because the citizens need to see the projects, need to see why you are talking every time about SDG. They need the projects. We try to make this in the second review, and we put the targets for Amman City, just to measure if we are going towards achieving SDG in Amman City. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Akram. So let me thanks again you and Ivana for having really highlighted the point of stakeholder engagement in VLR and post-VLR processes, not simply in collecting opinions, but really in supporting data production, in supporting inclusive city planning, in supporting inclusive SDG budgeting, but also the importance of making visible SDG implementation to all citizens and show the efforts, also in the sense of reinforcing what is a societal commitment by all actors on SDG implementation. I'll now leave over to Jürgen for the concluding remarks, and thanks again for the opportunity of moderating this session. Jürgen, over to you.
Thank you, Andrea, and thanks everyone to be here still 10 minutes past our deadline. So I will just keep it very short and just elaborate again that we have posted the Padlet, and we would like to keep that as a starting point as a conversation, or just one point in conversation between the local communities. hang on. All right. Now, in the Padlet, what we have done, we will look at it. I saw also there was some question asking for best practices from Sarah from Brazil, that we can share good practices, how we have engaged stakeholders in the process, even if we have very limited means. I saw Nirvana has posted on the Padlet an SDG comic book, very insightful. I just opened it, looked very interesting to see. I saw several videos that have been posted, so I would encourage in the coming days to continue using the Padlet. We have done the fourth session of the VLR-VSR Days slightly different in format than in past years. This time we do it prior to the HLPF. We will look at the Padlet more detailed. We're trying to bring these messages into next week's HLPF. Hope to engage in continuous discussions with local communities beyond the people who can attend the HLPF, who can physically be there. And I particularly like the message also that we can the youth as a driving actors into these processes. We have heard Italy, I think Germany as well. Ghana, I'm aware of it as well, have done national guidelines, but our partners from Habitat, from UCLG, as well as DESA, has published on the respective website guidelines elements how to prepare these processes. I would encourage everyone to look at these websites, including our partners from the regional commissions who have further information on their websites. We have repositories, we can look at existing VLRs and hope that we keep this exchange of practices lively. Now, I would like to conclude the session. We are slightly beyond schedule, but would hope that some of you will join and reconnect tomorrow for the second day. And I'm looking forward to see many of you again tomorrow morning, or our time, tomorrow afternoon. Your time was sometimes in the evening, depending on where and which time zone you are. And hopefully some of you will also be able to listen in or to participate in person at the HLPF next week. Please feel free to reach out to myself, Andrea, Umberto, and Carol if you need to connect partners as well. And I'm looking forward to continue working with you. Thank you, everyone, and we conclude for now.